Chapter 784. Star Devourer Insect's reply made Tan Xiao at a loss whether he had to cry or laugh. Did it think that the light vine was a 2-year-old child? Threatening it with a few words was enough to make it yield? Don't talk nonsense. Give me an idea. Star Devourer Insect seriously told Tan Xiao, the light vine is a particularly timid species, and they're most afraid of flames. Ordinary flames may have an effect on ordinary light vines, but powerful flames can burn them to death. Take this light vine in front of you for example. As long as you can get a powerful flame, you can kill it without scaring it. Timid? Flames? A strange look appeared in Tan Xiao's eyes. After cutting off the connection with Star Devourer Insect, he struggled to get up from Kawako's bosom. Along with the surging of his magical power, 2 blazing flames suddenly rose from his hands. What you light vines are most afraid of should be special flames, right? Unfortunately, I have a very high-quality flame. Today will be the day you die. Tan Xiao communicated with the light vine with his thoughts, his mood fluctuating with intense killing intent. In a flash, the light vine, which was emitting a lustrous luster, retracted all its swaying branches and quickly wrapped them around its body. Along with the feeling of fear, its thoughts also arrived. Is this the demonic flame? Damn it, how can you earthlings have this kind of demonic flame? Tang Xiao squinted his eyes. He cultivated the heavenly art of cosmic genesis, which belonged to the supreme devil art. Thus, the flames of magical power that he unleashed naturally carried a demonic nature. What surprised him, however, was that this light vine could actually recognize the demonic flame. That's right. The demonic flame I release is something that even those demon kings in the demon realm with monstrous cultivation may not necessarily be able to compare with me. Since you know the power of the demonic flame, you should know that the 2 demonic flames in my hands can burn you to ashes in an instant. Don't kill me. The light vine hurriedly transmitted its thoughts. Tan Xiao coldly snorted and said, You just ambushed me, so let's settle this score. Unless you can bring me great benefits, I don't mind venting my anger and making you wail in pain in the demonic flame. By the way, I forgot to tell you something. I used to be the paragon of the immortal world. Although I don't know if the planetary system you came from knows about the existence of the immortal world, I have a special ability. I can extract your soul. After I burn your body, I will seal your soul in the devil flame and burn it day and night, making you suffer the pain of being burned forever. Immortal world, paragon. Damn it. Guangting's body trembled violently, as if it was afraid, and it curled up even tighter. Just as Tan Xiao was about to threaten it further, he suddenly felt a pain in his finger. The Star Devourer Insect's thoughts quickly transmitted to him, You were once a supreme of the immortal world. That's right. Tan Xiao felt that there was no need to hide it from the Star Devourer Insect, so he answered directly. The Star Devourer Insect's emotions fluctuated abnormally. There was fear and excitement, and it even transmitted a thought with some caution, If you really were a paragon of the immortal world, then I'm willing to serve you forever. As long as you can bring me along when you return to the immortal world in the future, that will be enough. Do you really know about the immortal world? Asked Tan Xiao. That's right. We know about the immortal world, answered the Star Devourer Insect. That's right. We know about the immortal world, answered the Star Devourer Insect. But that passage is extremely dangerous. Only a species with terrifying strength can cross it and reach the higher plane of the immortal world. An immortal from the immortal world once came to our planetary system, and he easily killed the most powerful barefoot black dragon in our planetary system. He easily destroyed a supersized nation. Tan Xiao suddenly understood and agreed to the Star Devourer Insect's words. He then continued to threaten Guangteng. I once sent an immortal subordinate to your planetary system. He seemed to have killed the strongest barefoot black dragon in your planetary system and even easily destroyed a supersized nation. Unfortunately, my subordinate was too soft-hearted and directly killed him. If it were me, I would have extracted their souls and tortured them day and night. I wouldn't let them go even if it's a reincarnation cycle. Hiss, one of Guang Teng's tentacles suddenly extended towards Tan Xiu. There was a translucent diamond-shaped crystal on the dark green tentacle. Even without touching it, Tan Xiu could feel the enormous energy contained inside. He even had a feeling that if the energy inside the diamond-shaped crystal were to explode, it would absolutely destroy the entire earth. What do you mean? Asked Tan Xiu. Guang Teng's emotions carried a strong sense of flattery, but this flattery couldn't conceal its fear. This is my energy crystal core, my foundation. You can control my life and death by controlling my energy crystal core. I'm willing to submit to you forever. As long as you don't kill me, I'll do anything you want me to. Tang Xiu inquired about this star-devourer insect and got the same answer as what Guangting said. As long as one could control its energy crystal core, it could be regarded as having control over its life and death. However, this was very disadvantageous for Guangteng as it would slow down its growth. Life and Death Seal. Tan Xiu cast a spell into the energy crystal core and casually threw it to Guangteng, saying, I don't need to control your energy crystal core to easily control your life and death. You should be able to feel that I've cast a powerful forbidden technique inside your energy crystal core. As long as you dare to do anything to me, I can kill you with just a thought. After Guangteng put the energy crystal core back into his body, he sensed the thing inside the energy crystal core. That thing even made him feel fear. Once it exploded, it could indeed kill him directly, and even his soul would be blown into ashes. Tan Xiu took a deep breath and walked to the front of Guangteng under Kawako's horrified expression. He reached out to touch Guangteng's body and transmitted a transfiguration art to it. Then, he said, cultivate this transfiguration art to transform your body into a human form. An immortal art? Guangteng was excited. As its tentacles spread out, it quickly absorbed the contents of the transfiguration spell. In the short span of a dozen breaths, a crystalline dark green light appeared on the surface of its body. Within the light, a naked girl appeared. She looked to be only 15 or 16 years old, and her entire body was snow white, like warm porcelain. Transform clothes. Tan Xiu directly said. Guangting excitedly looked at her own body. Then, she put on a set of clothes that was almost the same as Tang Xiu's, but the color was dark green, which covered her naked body. Thank you, Master. Tan Xiu nodded with satisfaction and said, You'll follow me from now on. I'll give you some time to learn human knowledge. Ting Nu knows human knowledge, said Guangting quickly. This base can monitor any corner of this planet. I've lived here for more than 1,000,000 years and know all the evolutionary processes of humans. I even know that you come from a low-level civilization, China. Tan Xiu narrowed his eyes and asked, Since you know my origin, don't you know what I've done? Guangting shook her head. I know your origin through language. But I rarely observe the outside world. Sometimes, I don't observe the outside world even once in thousands of years. The last time I observed it was because a human came in, so it piqued my interest. Tan Xiu suddenly understood and nodded. Do you have a name? I originally didn't have a name, but since I'll be your slave in the future, you can call me Ting Nu, said Guangteng. Ting Nu. Tan Xiu nodded and was too lazy to give her a name. In that case, I'll call you Ting Nu from now on. This is the main control panel, right? I need to completely control this relic. Teach me. Ting Nu turned around and walked to the chair in the center of the hall. She pointed at it and said, There's a memory card in this chair. You only need to sit on it to get the memory card's transmission. After all the contents are transmitted to your brain, you'll know how to control this relic. All right. Tan Xiu was very courageous. He wasn't afraid that Ting Nu would trick him, so he directly sat on the chair. At this time, Kawako looked at Tan Xiu with eyes full of worship and respect. She didn't know how Tang Xiu did it. He was able to make the vine stop its attack and even turn it into a human form. A demon? She could conclude that this girl who called herself Ting Nu was a demon cultivated from vines. Yet, this demon was actually subdued by her boss, Tan Xiu. It was simply beyond her imagination. At this moment, she had never felt so strongly that following Tan Xiu was the right choice. Time fleeted by. In another hall in the ruins, there was a large nursery. In the nursery, there was a large number of precious spiritual herbs. These spiritual herbs all had their own intelligence, but none of them were able to leave the nursery. A hazy brilliance sprinkled down from the top of the nursery, providing them with all the nutrients they needed. After Qing Xuemei stepped into this place, she was keenly aware that the air here was extremely fresh. Even if it was just a light breath, it would make her feel refreshed, and she could feel all the pores on her body relaxing. When her eyes fell on the many fruits in the nursery, the rich fruity fragrance made her salivate. Fortunately, she was able to restrain her desire and quickly observed everything inside. Is this just a place for planting flowers and trees? Qing Xuemei was a bit disappointed. She hesitated for a moment before approaching the nursery. When she stopped half a meter away from the edge of the nursery, she bent down and reached inside. Whoosh! A sharp green leaf instantly wrapped around her wrist. The sharp edge of the leaf cut Qing Xuemei's wrist, causing her blood to spray out. However, when the leaf was stained with Qing Xuemei's blood, it instantly loosened its grip on Qing Xuemei's wrist. Under Qing Xuemei's watchful gaze, it quickly moved several meters away. Chapter 785. Qing Xuemei, whose wrist was cut, instantly became shocked. She never thought that she would encounter such a strange thing. It must be known that it was a plant. However, her shocked emotions had not yet subsided. Several branches and several long leaves instantly wrapped around her body. Under their pull, Qing Xuemei was pulled into the nursery. Apart from a half-meter tall, jade-green potted plant, which was stained with Qing Xuemei's warm blood and instantly shrunk back, the other branches and leaves pulled her into the nursery and tied her up like a dumpling. What's going on? A strong fear rose in Qing Xuemei's heart. She suddenly thought of the man-eating flower and the plant monster in the TV series. Suddenly, a plant that was blooming with beautiful flowers used its sharp thorny branches to stab into the top of Qing Xuemei's head. There was no blood splashing, nor was there brain fluid flowing. After the sharp thorns entered Qing Xuemei's brain, a green energy instantly formed an airtight net, wrapping her brain tissue. Fragile, human brain. The thought of the plant, with a huge surprise, was injected into Qing Xuemei's sea of consciousness along with the huge energy, and then through the meridian channel, it rushed into her body with irresistible force. Pain. As if her heart and lungs were torn apart, Qing Xuemei felt that she was about to be tortured to madness by this pain. She even realized that if this continued, her body would break. She wanted to use her consciousness to block the huge energy surging in her body, but it was of no use at all. Am I really going to die? Qing Xuemei was unwilling. Although her heart was filled with fear, she was not willing to die. Her mission had not been completed. What was the situation of her most concerned sister? She had not completely figured it out. At this moment, a strong courage burst from the bottom of her heart. At the moment when a huge consciousness descended into her body along the energy net, the two consciousnesses entangled. Originally, when Qing Xuemei's consciousness came into contact with that enormous consciousness, it would have been devoured by the other party. However, perhaps because of her courage, or perhaps because she was the owner of this body, a special energy suddenly escaped from her heart. Although the amount of golden energy was pitifully small, its quality was extremely high. Dragon Soul Blood Spirit? Damn it, how can an earthling have this kind of bloodline? The invading consciousness wailed and was instantly shattered by the golden energy. As the layers of images dispersed, it floated in the space of Qing Xuemei's consciousness like duckweed. In front of Qing Xuemei, the green plant withered at a speed visible to the naked eye. Even the blooming flowers slowly turned into ashes and scattered with the gentle wind. In an instant, tens of thousands of plants in the entire nursery seemed to be frightened and fled tens of meters away. The plants that bound Qing Xuemei's body were no exception. They hid far away and watched as Cheng Shuamei's body was gradually wrapped by the layer of dark green light and eventually turned into an oval green light cocoon. In another space in the vestige, 10 experts from Country M and Country F were confronting each other in front of a pair of energy crystals. Although the 10 of them were scarred and bloodstained, their lives were not in danger. Near them were 4 corpses belonging to the YDL people. You know my strength very well, Alanti. If we fight, the final winner will still be us. So get the hell out of here if you don't want to die. Else, don't blame us for being impolite. Sorid, the captain of Country M's team, said with a gloomy expression and a murderous aura. Alanti's face was also full of murderous aura. Beads of blood were still dripping from the tip of the long saber in his hand. Do you really think you can get these energy crystals if the 5 of us lock our target on you? Do you really think you can continue to live if we burn our life aura and drag you to hell with us? We must get at least half of this pile of energy crystals, else we'll just split up and let the other countries get the benefits. The corner of Sorid's eyes twitched a few times. This was what he was most worried about. Even if he was confident that he could kill Alanti and the other 4 enemies from Country F, he was afraid that they would also suffer great losses. It would be good if only 3 out of the 5 of them could survive. If the experts from other countries were to appear at that time, it would be like the old saying that when the sandpiper and the clam fight, the fisherman will reap the benefits. However, Country M had always had a reputation of being a hegemon, and Sorid was also very overbearing. His status in Country M's Special Abilities Bureau was absolutely above 1,000 people and only under 1 person. His status in the entire country was transcendent. It would simply be a disgrace to them if they were to share half of it with the F people for no reason. Sorid took a deep breath and said in a deep voice, "It's absolutely impossible for you to share half of it. However, I can make the decision to give you 30%. If you're not satisfied with it, then just stand and fight. If worst comes to worst, we'll immediately send our men to deliver these energy crystals after we kill you, and then we'll return to continue fighting for other treasures." Alanti took a deep breath and secretly decided to use his trump card. He would strive to use the fiercest attack to let these damned M people know his strength and redistribute these energy crystals. Lightning and thunder. A round metal object was instantly taken out from Alanti's sleeve. A circle of lightning appeared and densely packed lightning bolts fiercely shot towards Sorid's group of 5. At the same time, the other 4 also launched a fierce attack, displaying various special abilities one after another as they attacked the 5 M people with great momentum. Bastards! Sorid's complexion greatly changed. He never expected that Alanti's group of 5 would immediately attack them because of a disagreement. Most importantly, when did Alanti have such a powerful special ability? Even he couldn't block the hundreds of lightning bolts that formed in an instant. Dodge! Along with his roar, layers of flames instantly formed into a wall of fire, desperately blocking the lightning attacks. But every attack that hit the wall of fire made Sorid's body tremble. After hundreds of lightning bolts hit the wall of fire, more than a dozen of them were completely penetrated. Sorid's body violently swayed and then staggered to the side to dodge. "You guys, retreat." A handsome blonde Caucasian youth's complexion drastically changed. A few metal walls formed in front of him and instantly blocked the lightning bolts that were not blocked by the wall of fire. However, in just a few seconds, the other 4 people's special ability attacks had arrived. Although the metal walls looked solid, dozens of lightning bolts still penetrated the metal walls and bombarded the Caucasian youth's chest under the fierce bombardment. "Treasurer! Treasurer!" After a few exclamations, the 4 people, including Sorid, instantly dashed to the front of the Caucasian youth and joined forces to block the storm-like attacks. Unfortunately, the youth called Treasurer didn't expect that the enemy's attack would be so powerful. His whole body was scorched by the lightning bolts, and there was a fist-sized hole in his chest. Although he was still alive, it seemed that he wouldn't be able to survive. An excited look flashed in Alanti's eyes. This was the second time he used the ability booster, but he didn't expect that the effect would be so good. He originally thought that it would be a great achievement to cause some injuries to the 5 people from the M country, but he didn't expect that he would directly kill a M country ability user. Sword, you brought this upon yourselves. Ha ha ha. I have an ability booster, so the power of each of my attacks is absolutely beyond your imagination. Next time, as long as I unleash an even more powerful attack, even you might be killed by it. Sword's complexion instantly turned extremely unsightly. His eyes stared at the round object in Alante's hand as he took a deep breath and said, "We'll remember this enmity. Let's divide these energy crystals equally. If you agree, we'll immediately divide them equally. If you don't, then we'll kill you. Even if you have a treasure, I'm still confident that I can kill all of you." Alante deliberately hesitated for a moment before he nodded and said, "I'll agree to your request so that the people from other countries won't take advantage of me." As a matter of fact, his special ability booster could only be used once at a time. After using it, he needed to store energy for a long time. For example, his special ability was to control electricity, so it took him several months to store a large amount of electricity in the special ability booster. When he used it, he could release hundreds of lightning attacks at once. In another place. In the hall where the main control console was located, Tan Xiu clearly saw what happened to Qing Xueme and the M and F country members through the virtual image. Originally, he wanted to rescue Qing Xueme when she encountered an accident. But he never thought that Qing Xueme would be in the most dangerous situation by the time he found out about it. Even if he had wings, he wouldn't be able to rush there in time. What made him feel relieved was that Qing Xueme didn't seem to be in any life-threatening danger. Instead, she seemed to have obtained a huge opportunity. "Boss, these M people are really annoying." Kawako, who stood beside Tan Xiu, spoke to Sorod with a disgusted look. She knew Sorod. She had seen Sorod torture and kill a few homeless people who had somehow offended him. Tan Xiu also didn't have a favorable impression of the M people. Upon hearing Kawako's words, he thoughtfully said, "If we kill all the M people, we can't leave the F country's team alive. Now that the power system of the entire vestige is under my control, killing them will be as easy as pinching an ant." He had obtained the inherited memories, so it was easy for him to control the offensive weapons in the vestige. He could even clearly see the scene in the entire vestige through the main control console. "The fewer enemies we have, the more harvest we'll get, boss." Kawako was pleasantly surprised. Chapter 786. Tan Xiu adopted Kawako's suggestion. His hands turned into afterimages as his fingers constantly tapped on the virtual keyboard. Just as the M and F teams reached an agreement and were about to divide the energy crystals, all the lights in the hall where the members of both teams were located suddenly went out. "What's going on?" Sorod and Alante shouted at the same time. At the same time, the members of both teams retreated in an instant, vigilantly watching the surroundings. They didn't know whether it was the other party's doing or not, but it was still necessary to take precautions. Fire, burn, both teams had members with fire attribute abilities. As flames rose from the hands of the fire ability users of both sides, light finally appeared in the pitch-black hall. However, just as they were scrutinizing each other, the closed walls suddenly cracked open, and a faint light emerged from the crack. It was a pair of red eyes with colorful streamers. The 8 cracks grew bigger and bigger as 8 robots were fully activated and stepped out from inside. There was a robot dog under each of their feet. Buzz, a swarm of robot bees followed closely behind. In an instant, they surpassed the robots and robot dogs and rushed toward the 9 people in the hall. These robot bees were the size of a fist, and there were hundreds of them. Each of them had very sharp claws, and there were even spikes on their heads that were more than 10 centimeters long. "Watch out! Dodge quickly!" Sorod and Alante shouted at the same time. They unleashed their abilities in an attempt to eliminate these robot bees first. Unfortunately, flames didn't have much effect on these robot bees. Even lightning didn't have much effect on them. The only thing that comforted the M ability users was that there was a water ability user in their team. With the cooperation of the electric ability user, they destroyed many robot bees. Puff. 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 16 laser beams shot out, and the 8 robot dogs unfurled their strange wings from their backs. The moment they flew up, they sprayed out a wave of flames. The ability users dodged in time, but it was also extremely dangerous. Just as they dodged the first round of attacks from the robots, the robot dogs, and the robot bees, a large net surging with electric currents shot from 4 directions and almost instantly enveloped them. Then, beams of laser beams shot through the bodies of the ability users from both countries and harvested their lives. The flames spewed out by the robot dog burned their bodies to ashes. Kawako's eyes gleamed with excitement as she watched the elite elementalists from Country M and Country F turn into ashes on the virtual screen. She fiercely clenched her fists and shouted excitedly, "Those damned bastards have been an eyesore for a long time. Now that they're dead, you can say that you've eliminated the evil for the people, boss. Get rid of evil for the people." Tan Shio glanced at her with a strange expression and smilingly said, "Are they very bad?" Kawako heavily nodded and said, "That's right. For example, the captain of the M Nation's team, Sorid. That bastard relied on his identity as an ability user, as well as his powerful strength and status, to kill people many times. Most importantly, he even killed the tramps who saw him using his superpower." Tan Shio didn't know whether to laugh or cry. "Don't forget who you are. When did you become so concerned about the homeless?" Kawako blushed and said with a bit of embarrassment, "I actually don't care about those tramps at all. It's mainly because I led a team to snatch an attribute stone from Sorid's hand, but I was seriously injured by him and lost more than 20 of my team members. There's a feud between us." Tan Shio suddenly understood and nodded. "Killing him can be considered as avenging your team members." Kawako waved her hand and said, "Only 2 of them are my men, the rest are from the Yamamoto family. Their life and death have nothing to do with me." "How's your development in the Yamamoto family now?" asked Tan Shio. "With your help, boss, it's naturally very smooth." Kawako smilingly said, "If it wasn't for the fact that I didn't dare to develop with great fanfare, the entire Yamamoto family would be under my control now. However, even though I'm acting in the dark, 1/3 of the Yamamoto family's armed forces are under my control now. As for the North Star One Blade School's armed forces, it's also under my control." Tan Shio gave a thumbs up and praised, "Well done. Boss, if you can send me a few top experts, I can become the real patriarch and leader of the Yamamoto family and the North Star One Blade School in a short time," said Kawako. "There's a saying in your country that you must first capture the ringleader to capture the thieves. Nothing will go wrong as long as I control all the top brass." Tan Shio thought for a while and nodded. "I'll send 2 experts to assist you after we leave this place. With their help, you'll definitely be able to control these 2 forces quickly. However, what are you going to do next after you control these 2 forces?" A cold light flashed in Kawako's eyes as she said in a heavy tone, "The Sakura Society must be eliminated." Tan Shio was not clear about the Sakura Society situation in Japan, but he found out that the Sakura Society had always been the enemy of the Yamamoto family. Although the 2 sides appeared calm on the surface, there were constant frictions in the background and a fierce conflict happened some time ago. It was in that conflict that Kawako led the experts to kill a large number of the Sakura Society's experts. Hence, she was rewarded by the Yamamoto family and became the leader of the younger generation of the Yamamoto family. "Go ahead and do it. I'll need you to do a lot of things in the future. The stronger the power you control, the easier it will be for you to handle things in the future. Tell me when you need money and manpower. Even if I have to rush there myself, I'll make sure that you can smoothly deal with those enemies." Kawako directly knelt on one knee and excitedly said, "Thank you, boss. I'll definitely do my best to control more power and do my best for you. Even if you want to be the Lord of Japan in the future, I'll help you do it." Tan Shio gently patted Kawako's shoulder and smilingly said, "Get up. I'm not interested in being the Lord of Japan, nor do I have any ambitions. But you, on the other hand, may become the Lord of Japan someday in the future. Work hard and I'm very optimistic about you. Shortly after, Tan Xiu listened to the virtual video and watched the 4 Chinese ability users carefully exploring the armory. There were countless weapons of all kinds inside. After a series of tests, the 4 were full of excitement as they packed the small but powerful weapons into their military bags. If it weren't for their limited physical strength, they would have emptied the entire armory. Boss, since you've already taken control of this vestige, are you still willing to let them take away all the weapons in the armory? Asked Kawako in a puzzled tone upon seeing that Tan Xiu didn't show any expression. It's impossible for them to take all the weapons out, said Tan Xiu calmly. I'll give them a big gift when they're about to leave. A big gift? Kawako was looking forward to it. She really wanted to see what Tan Xiu would do to these Chinese ability users. Half an hour later. A smile immediately appeared on the corner of Tan Xiu's mouth as he watched Zhu Long's group of 4 leave the armory to continue exploring other places. His hands kept typing on the virtual keyboard as he completed a series of program settings. Afterward, he indifferently smiled and said, I'm going to take a stroll in other places. You stay here and monitor them. Remember, the program I've set won't put their lives in danger, but it's inevitable that they will be careless in battle. So press this button immediately once you find them in danger. Kawako looked at the place Tan Xiu pointed at and nodded. Don't worry, boss. I'll monitor them carefully. The entire 3-star vestige was very large, but Tan Xiu was very familiar with it since he had received the inherited memories. After leaving the main control hall alone, he immediately rushed to other places, the armory, the energy depot, the living area, the sports area. Finally, Tan Xiu came to the plantation area where Qing Xuemei was trapped. Looking at the dark green light cocoon in front of him, Tan Xiu detected that Qing Xuemei's life signs were quite good and was growing stronger with every passing moment. Immediately after, his eyes shifted to the tens of thousands of plants in the nursery. Although he had learned from the inherited memories that all the plants in this plantation area had been stored for more than 1,000,000 years and each of them possessed magical powers, he was still very excited. It must be noted that, if these plants learned the transfiguration art and turned into humans, the power they would possess would be absolutely terrifying. They would probably become a huge force even in the immortal world. However, before teaching them the shape-shifting technique, he had to subdue all of these highly intelligent plants to prevent unnecessary trouble after he left this place. Tan Xiu took a deep breath and spoke in the Black Cloud Star Field's common language in a deep voice. I know you can hear me and understand what I'm saying. I've become the master of this vestige and obtained the inheritance left by the last clansman of the Star Luo Empire, so I'll give you 2 choices. First, be killed by me here. Second, accept my control and become my subordinates. Buzz, in an instant, the tens of thousands of intelligent plants in the nursery let out a series of buzzing sounds. They quickly communicated with each other in a unique way. After a long while, a plant that was several meters tall and completely white transmitted a thought to Tan Xiu. Why should we believe you? If it weren't for the fact that we can't leave this special space, any one of us would be able to kill you. A cold smile appeared at the corner of Tan Xiu's mouth, and he said, You're right. The area you live in has indeed been set up with a special formation by the people of the Star Luo Empire. You can only move in this area, but you can't appear anywhere else in the vestige of steel. If you don't have help, you might even be trapped here forever. Therefore, you can't kill me now, but I have many ways to kill you. For example, using fire. Chapter 787. As the devil flame appeared in Tan Xiu's hands, the intense heat instantly caused the entire cultivation area to surge with layers of heat waves. Even the moment the devil flame appeared in Tan Xiu's hands, the tens of thousands of intelligent plants in the nursery seemed to have seen a terrifying nemesis and hurriedly avoided it. Interesting. Even though they could not be transmitted to Tan Xiu could still clearly sense the intense fear. In order to completely intimidate them, Tan Xiu sneered and said again, I can control the entire weapon system in the ruins. If I want to kill all of you, I only need to use laser cannons and corrosive venom to easily do so. Also, if I don't think you're worth my resources, I won't use the weapon system. I only need to shut down the photosynthesizer in the plant area, destroy the nutrient generator, and completely cut off your nutrient absorption channel so that you'll constantly consume your own energy. I believe that in a long time, you'll gradually wither and lose the possibility of survival. In an instant. As soon as Tan Xiu's voice fell, countless emotional fluctuations full of fear came, accompanied by horrified screams, "Surrender, I'm willing to surrender. Spare me, I'm willing to recognize you as my master. Don't kill us. Choose the second option." Tan Xiu nodded in satisfaction. What he wanted to do was to threaten and entice them. Now that he had threatened and intimidated them, the next step was to use a gentle attitude to give them some benefits. I can tell you clearly that choosing to surrender to me is absolutely beneficial for you. Because I can teach you immortal techniques that will not only allow you to transform, but also allow you to have unparalleled magical powers in the future. Immortal techniques? Transform. In an instant, tens of thousands of intelligent plants fell silent. They used special means to observe Tan Xiu. Before they developed intelligence, they did not know what immortal techniques were. Even though it had not been long since they developed high-level intelligence, they did not understand what immortal techniques meant to them. However, since tens of thousands of years ago, a light vine suddenly came to them and communicated with them, they learned about immortal techniques. From their point of view, the light vine was extremely terrifying. The amount of energy it could store was countless times greater than theirs. However, an immortal technique that even the light vine yearned to obtain was definitely something very, very good. A surging aura burst out from Tang Xiu's body and he shouted, "Release your energy cores. I need to cast a forbidden technique on them. Once I cast it on you, your lives will be under my control. I can obliterate anyone who dares to betray me with just a thought." Xiu. 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 Energy cores floated out of the intelligent plants, causing the space around them to tremble. Tan Xiu's spiritual consciousness swept out and was immediately dumbfounded. According to his calculations, there were a total of 35,680 energy crystals flying toward him. In fact, he felt a little apprehensive at this moment. If these intelligent plants were to use their energy crystal cores to attack him, he would probably be killed in an instant. After all, these were all million-year-old monsters. It was a forbidden technique. Tan Xiu no longer hesitated and frantically began to cast the forbidden technique on the energy cores. But 35,680 energy cores were definitely a huge project for him. In an empty hall in the vestige, the 4 Chinese ability users could be said to have returned from a rewarding journey. They were in a relaxed mood and each of them carried a military bag full of weapons. Even a variety of weapons were hung on their bodies. Zhu Long, Fire Devil, and Electro Lady's faces bloomed with smiles, and even Aqua Babe, who rarely laughed, had a smile on her face. I wonder how Tan Xiu is doing. He encountered a lot of dangers when he just entered the vestige, but there were very few dangers inside. He should be fine, right? Zhu Long looked around after entering the hall and spoke with a smile. Zhu Long boss, people of different paths can't make plans together. Fire Devil grinned and said, that surnamed Tang was just a partner with us before, but we're actually not on the same path as him. As for whether he's alive or dead, it has nothing to do with us. You don't need to worry about it. What Fire Devil said makes sense, but I still hope he can survive, said Electro Lady with a smile. At the very least, he's very handsome and the type I, Electro Lady, like. It would be a waste if he were to die inside. The smile on Aquababe's face receded and she coldly glanced at Fire Devil and Electro Lady, saying, don't forget that we wouldn't have had such a big harvest if it weren't for Tan Xiu. In fact, we might have even died in the previous danger. Hey, Aquababe. Don't boost others' momentum while diminishing your own. Fire Devil sneered. Who said we couldn't have come inside safely without him? Could you have easily destroyed the robots in the outermost passage without Tang Xiu? Aquababe questioned. Aquababe questioned. Could you have smoothly passed through the illusion array in the statue hall without Tang Xiu? Could you have opened the door in the statue hall without Tang Xiu? Can you be sure we wouldn't have fought with the ability users of other countries without Tang Xiu? Can you be sure we wouldn't have fought with the ability users of other countries? Fire Devil was rendered speechless by Aquababe's sharp question. His face turned a bit unsightly as he directly turned his face to the side and no longer spoke. Zhu Long furrowed his brows. Although his opinion of Tan Xiu had greatly changed, he was still somewhat dissatisfied with Tan Xiu's departure from the team. However, what Aquababe said was very reasonable and he couldn't refute it, so he said, "Cut it out. Tan Xiu is, after all, a Chinese. Whether he will hand over the benefits to the country or not, at least he won't let those foreigners benefit. As long as we're still in this vestige, we can only be comrades, not enemies." But no one said he's an enemy. Fire Devil couldn't help but mutter. However, just as he finished speaking, a laser instantly shot out from the corner of the hall. In an instant, the fire demon was caught off guard and shot through his arm. What's going on? The complexion of Zhu Long and the others greatly changed. They instantly threw the military bags in their hands to the side and even quickly removed the heavy weapons on their bodies while being vigilant. Fire Devil's arm was pierced, but it didn't hurt his bones. Nevertheless, the badly mangled wound was still very serious. As he used his fire attribute special ability, he quickly used a fireball to fuse into the wound. Flesh began to grow at a speed visible to the naked eye, and the bleeding stopped. Puff! 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 Four laser beams shot from the four corners of the hall, targeting the vigilant Zhu Long's group of four. However, the laser beams were not aimed at their vital points. Dodge! Zhu Long's complexion changed and he instantly pushed Fire Devil to the side and dashed to the side. Their speed was very fast and they barely dodged the incoming laser beams. Disbelief flashed in Electro Lady's eyes as she loudly said, "Boss Zhu Long, we didn't encounter any laser attacks when we passed here before. What the hell is going on here?" Zhu Long's eyes wandered back and forth in the four corners of the hall as he cautiously said, "I don't know, either. But if my guess is correct, we should have accidentally triggered some traps here. Everyone, be careful. If there are any more laser beams coming out, take these high-tech weapons and leave immediately." Puff, 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 in just a few seconds, more laser beams shot out from everywhere. This time, there were 8 of them. Despite being very strong, the 4 of them were still nearly hit by the laser beams. Damn it! Let's get out of here. Zhu Long was keenly aware that the number of laser beams was multiplying. If they stayed here for too long, it would be very difficult for them to leave alive. His shadow flickered as he grabbed the 2 military bags on the ground and sprinted toward the end of the hall lightning fast. The other 3 also picked up the military bags and heavy weapons they threw and sprinted forward. Unfortunately, their wishful thinking was smashed by the next wave of laser attacks. 16 laser beams formed a crisscrossed route and came toward them head-on. "Throw away those heavy weapons!" Zhu Long roared. But before he could avoid the 16 crisscrossed laser beams, he could clearly see a laser net moving quickly behind them. His eyes were extremely sharp and he instantly judged that the gap between the laser net could only pass through one person at most. Full of unwillingness, he angrily threw away the 2 military bags he was carrying. At the back, Fire Devil, Electro Lady, and Aquababe also noticed the situation ahead. Just like Zhu Long, they threw away all the military bags and heavy weapons and quickly sprinted after them. Buzz, 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 in less than 10 seconds, the 4 of them had passed through the hall. However, the weapons they had brought from the armory were all discarded in the hall. Even the cutting of the laser beams had destroyed those weapons. What made them most distressed was that many of the small weapons they carried were also cut and destroyed by the laser beams that brushed past them. The four of them stood side by side at the entrance of the passageway outside the hall and looked at the lasers that were no longer shooting everywhere. The ill-tempered fire devil angrily cursed, "What the hell?" Aquababe turned to look at Zhu Long and asked, "What should we do next? Do we go back to the armory to get some weapons? Or do we just leave?" Zhu Long was silent for a moment. Then, he shook his head and said, "We didn't encounter any danger here when we went in, but we did when we came out. This shows that we were lucky when we went in, but bad luck when we came out. Now, since we still have some weapons on us, let's leave it at that. I suggest that we look elsewhere." "What if there's danger elsewhere?" asked Aquababe. "We'll evacuate immediately if there's danger elsewhere," said Zhu Long in a deep voice. Chapter 788. Inside the main control room, Kawako Yamamoto was quietly standing in front of the main control panel, watching the distressed appearances of Zhu Long and the others through the virtual images. The corners of her mouth curved into a smile. She was already extremely beautiful to begin with, and the smile on her face made her look even more charming. Unfortunately, there was no man around her, only Tingnu, an intelligent creature who didn't know how to flirt. However, when her eyes inadvertently swept over a virtual image next to her, her expression suddenly changed and a surprised look appeared in her eyes. Someone from Japan. Kawako didn't expect that there would be an ability user from Japan in the vestige. He crawled up from the ground covered in scars. He should have been killed by the ability user from Country M, but she didn't expect that he didn't die completely. However, judging from his serious injuries, he would probably lose his life if he were to encounter any danger again. At the botanical area, Tan Xiao was sweating profusely as he cast the forbidden technique. 35,680 energy nuclei. Even though he had been working non-stop, it still took him a long time to complete the process. Even his complexion was faintly pale due to the excessive consumption of his mental force. 3 days flashed by like a white horse. Finally, when Tan Xiao exhausted his mental force for the 6th time, he cast the forbidden technique on all 35,680 energy nuclei. In other words, even if these intelligent plants were to be released from the nursery, they wouldn't pose any danger to him. However, the forbidden technique wasn't over yet. He still needed to teach them the transfiguration art. He didn't want to have a large number of plants around him. If outsiders were to see them, they would be scared witless. Huff, after Tan Xiao taught the transfiguration art to 35,680 plants, he finally heaved a sigh of relief and quietly sat cross-legged. He didn't immediately restore his consumed mental force but observed them instead. Time ticked by. Finally, a swaying blade of grass suddenly burst out with an intense green light. Shortly after, a 7 or 8-year-old child appeared in Tan Xiao's sight. Amazing. The child blinked his eyes, then looked at Tan Xiao from afar, cupped his fists and bowed. Tang Xiao let out a faint smile and beckoned to him. At this moment, he directly broke the array that enveloped the nursery's surroundings. Master. The child's voice was crisp and clear, but he was completely naked, not turning into clothes. It was only under Tan Xiao's suggestion that he conjured the strangely shaped clothes. Tan Xiao had no choice but to take out his phone, find some photos of children's clothes, and signal for him to change. Immediately after, plants continued to transform into human forms. After another half a day had passed, not a single plant remained in the nursery. There were 35,680 people of all ages and genders, and all of them were looking at Tan Xiao respectfully. Tan Xiao said with satisfaction, "You've just transformed into human forms, so there are some rules you don't know yet. How about this? You guys can stay in this base for the time being. I will send a group of humans over to impart to you the knowledge and common sense of Earth. If you have mastered the knowledge and common sense, I'll take you out to live outside." Understood. The sonorous voice made Tan Xiao secretly satisfied. In fact, Tang Xiao's appearance in front of them was a risky move. After all, each of these guys was an old monster who had lived for millions of years. Even if they didn't have systematic cultivation, each of them possessed extremely terrifying strength. He was even secretly worried that they would immediately cause a heavenly tribulation to descend once they appeared outside. No, I must take measures in advance to refine the tribulation evasion talisman. Perhaps only the tribulation evasion talisman can hide from the heavenly Tao and let them live well on earth. However, they have lived for a long time and the energy they possess is too powerful. If even the tribulation evasion talisman can't conceal their aura, I'm afraid they can only live here for a short time. Tan Xiu took a deep breath and immediately imparted a crude cultivation technique from the immortal world to them. Then, he said, you guys will cultivate here in peace. It won't be long before I take you out of this place to wander in the legendary immortal world. If any of you dare to leave without my order, don't blame me for being ruthless and destroying your soul. Understood. All the sentient plants in human form hurriedly complied. When Tan Xiu returned to the main control room, he saw Kawako with her brows furrowed while holding her chin. He couldn't help but ask, what's the problem? You look like you're in a dilemma. Kawako's spirit was shaken. She pointed to the virtual image and said, I found a fish that escaped the net, boss. It's an ability user from YD. He's badly injured, but his life doesn't seem to be in danger. He's now recovering, and it won't take long for him to fully recover. Surprised, Tan Xiu immediately nodded and said, that's right. It's indeed a fish that escaped the net. It seems that the M and F people are also unreliable. Forget it. Let him live since he's not dead. After all, many countries have joined forces to enter the vestige this time. If the other countries' people are all dead and only our 2 countries are left, we may have some troubles when the time comes. Kawako stared blankly for a moment before she nodded thoughtfully and said, you're right. Let alone the other countries, I'm afraid that the M country won't let this go given how overbearing they are. That's right, what should we do if the other countries send more people here? You don't know. Tan Xiu was surprised. This vestige only opens twice every decade. That's right, what's the date today? May 5th, answered Kawako. Tan Xiu furrowed his brows and nodded. Since it's May 5th, there are still 2 days left. We must leave this vestige within 2 days. Let's do it this way. You'll leave after a while. Give some energy crystals to the other countries if they want to snatch them. You mean? I'll leave with your people? Asked Kawako. That's right. Tan Xiu nodded. Not only the other 4 people from Huaxia, but also that YD fella. With people from 3 countries coming out alive, I'm sure the other countries will guess that something is wrong with the situation inside. They won't blame it all on our 2 countries. You can go back to Japan directly after you leave. I'll send someone to Japan to look for you after I leave. Are you not going out for the time being, boss? Asked Kawako quickly. Didn't you say it's only 2 days? Tan Xiu raised his hand to interrupt her and smilingly said, do I need a submarine to pick me up if I want to go out? I've already taken control of the entire vestige, and I can even write the program myself. I can control the ship to leave the vestige at any time as long as I want to. I understand. Kawako suddenly pointed to the flora area where Qing Shuame was wrapped in a dark green light cocoon and asked, what about her? I'm staying here for the time being to wait for her to leave with me, said Tan Xiu. I've just checked her condition before I came back from the flora area. She's not in danger, but it won't take long for her to wake up. Don't worry. I'll take care of her properly. As for the island nation, you just need to make up an excuse. I understand. Kawako nodded and turned around to leave. In the passageway on the periphery of the vestige, the 4 Huaxia ability users were covered with scars, yet they brought out some weapons as well as the previously decomposed robot parts. They didn't rush to leave and just waited quietly. It was because they must take the M country's submarine if they wanted to leave. Zhu Long, boss, do you think Tan Xiu can come out or not? We've been waiting here for almost 2 days, asked Fire Devil slowly. You're asking me, but who am I supposed to ask? Zhu Long shook his head. The vestige is too strange and dangerous. A little carelessness will cost you your life. We've been inside for 5 days, but no ability users from any country have come out except for the 4 of us. This shows that many ability users from many countries have fallen inside. I believe he'll definitely come out, said Aquababe all of a sudden. Why are you so sure? Asked Zhu Long in surprise. Intuition, answered Aquababe. Electrolady looked at Aquababe with a strange expression and immediately sneered. Hey, don't tell me you've really taken a fancy to Tanshio. Aquababe directly turned her face to the side with an expression that seemed to say, I'm too lazy to talk to you. Suddenly, the 4 people sitting on the ground jumped up and vigilantly watched Kawako coming out from inside. A Japanese? Zhu Long's group of 4 frowned. They didn't expect that the first person to come out alive turned out to be the Japanese they hated the most. Kawako indifferently glanced at Zhu Long's group of 4 and lightly said, You guys are very lucky to have lost so few people. It looks like your harvest is pretty good. Do you want to share some with me? Zhu Long sneered. Aren't you afraid that we'll join forces to kill you and snatch the things you brought out? I'd be a bit worried if it were someone from other countries. Kawako shook her head. But you Chinese won't. It's not your style. Zhu Long's eyes turned cold. Just as he was about to attack Kawako, a figure staggered and rushed out. The Japanese man was covered in scars, holding a dagger in his hand and looking at everyone with a murderous aura. You're lucky. Zhu Long sneered and gestured to the 4 people. They then picked up the things they brought out and directly headed outside without waiting for Tanshio. As long as the members of each country returned to the interface, the submarine would immediately send them out. This was the agreement between countries. In the depths of the vestige. In front of the main console, Tanshio watched the 3 parties heading outside at the same time. A smile appeared on the corner of his mouth. He had already thought of a countermeasure to immediately seal off the entire vestige after all of them had left. Then, he would wait for Qing Xueme to wake up before quietly leaving with Qing Xueme. As for the spoils of war, he had obtained too many. He could casually take some before leaving and hand it over to Duan Mulin, which would probably be a great contribution. Chapter 789. Haiben Island. The garrison commanders of the 10 countries stood in a row on the shore, all of them looking at the surface of the sea with expectant expressions. There were only 7 days left to explore the ruins, and there were only 2 days left before the deadline. According to the previous experience, it was about time for all the experts to come out. As the commander of Huaxia, Gao Hongxing was extremely nervous. He clearly understood the deeper meaning behind this exploration of the ruins. As long as he could obtain a small amount of technology from the ruins of an advanced civilization, he would be able to promote the progress of the entire country. A great man once said, political power comes from the barrel of a gun. The armed forces of the country represented the right to speak in the current era. Although China's development was rapid, it definitely could not become the #1 country. Therefore, if the Huaxia team members were able to reap a great harvest in this expedition, the entire country's military strength would advance by leaps and bounds and have a qualitative leap. You're back. The F country's commander's expression changed as he shouted excitedly. In an instant, everyone's eyes were fixed on the submarine that was slowly rising from the bottom of the water. As the door of the submarine opened, the first person to appear in front of everyone was the heavily injured member of YD. At this moment, he was carrying a black leather bag. After he quickly reached the shore, dozens of YD soldiers quickly surrounded him. Second place. It was Kawako Yamamoto who was carrying a black suitcase. Immediately, the people from the Japanese military looked excited and quickly protected her. After that, when Zhu Long and the other 3 came out with a lot of things, Gao Hongxing waved his arm excitedly. Immediately, dozens of Huaxia soldiers quickly surrounded the 4 of them and protected them. Where's Tanshio? Although Gao Hongxing's heart was filled with excitement, he didn't forget to ask. Zhu Long silently shook his head and said, We separated inside and never saw each other again. I'm afraid, the odds are against us. Gao Hongxing silently nodded and shouted in a deep voice, go back. However, as the members of the three countries returned, the commanders of the other countries became anxious. They were waiting anxiously, but they were informed by the personnel in the submarine that no one from the other countries had returned. Underwater ruins. Although Tan Xiu had already taken control of the entire base, he did not remain idle. He constantly appeared in various places and stuffed large amounts of things that could be taken away into his spatial ring. In just 2 short days, the few spatial rings he had were stuffed to the brim. Ting Nu had been following Tan Xiu all this time. After spending 2 days together, her admiration for Tan Xiu had reached a point where it was hard to increase. Tan Xiu's various magical methods, as well as the immortal techniques that he would occasionally teach her when he was in the mood, made her excited to the point where her blood surged. Master, can you stay a little longer? After returning to the control room at the center of the base, Ting Nu asked with hope. Tan Xiu smiled and looked at the light cocoon that enveloped Qing Xuemei in the virtual image. Now, there was only a thin layer left. He shook his head and smiled. I still have a lot of time to deal with outside, so I can't stay here for too long. Furthermore, you'll need a lot of time to digest what I've taught you. So, you should just stay here and cultivate peacefully. I believe it won't take long for me to come back, and at that time, I'll take you out. Ting Nu didn't care about where she was. What she cared about was becoming stronger. Therefore, when she heard Tan Xiu's words, she immediately nodded and said, then I'll wait for you to come back here. Go to the botanical area. Tan Xiu said. Bring Qing Xuemei here. All right. Ting Nu replied and her figure instantly disappeared. Tan Xiu bitterly smiled inwardly. Ting Nu's speed was too fast, to the point that he couldn't even see her clearly. Moreover, Ting Nu wasn't the only one who was fast. Even the 35,680 intelligent plants in human form were extremely fast. Even the weakest one was more than 10 times faster than him. Fortunately, I've cast a forbidden technique on them. Otherwise, they could easily cause serious injuries or even death to me with just a flick of their fingers. Tan Xiu muttered inwardly and then began to input instructions on the virtual keyboard. He needed to close all the entrances to the ruins. He even left a hidden exit that would be closed in 2 days. Once it was closed, no one except him would be able to enter. Whoosh, Ting Nu grabbed the light cocoon and reappeared in front of Tan Xiu. At this moment, Qing Xuemei was still unconscious inside the light cocoon and didn't know anything about the situation outside. 1 day later. When the light cocoon completely disappeared, Qing Xuemei finally woke up from her coma. The moment she opened her eyes, Ting Nu's hands were already pressed on her shoulders. Tan Xiu looked at Qing Xuemei lying on the ground and faintly asked, how do you feel now? Qing Xuemei blinked her eyes and a huge aura burst out from her body. She felt that her body was full of explosive power. She even had a feeling that she could flatten a mountain in front of her with just a punch. Qing Xuemei wanted to struggle to sit up, but even though her body was full of power, she was still firmly pressed by Ting Nu and couldn't get up. Tan Xiu waved his hand and said, forget it. You don't need to explain. Although I don't know what happened to you, it seems to be a good thing. At the very least, you've become stronger, and it's not just a little bit stronger. She's Ting Nu, a light vine in human form. I was afraid that you wouldn't be able to control your own power when you just woke up, so I asked her to hold you down. Listen well, when she releases you, don't suddenly get up and don't use too much power. Just slowly adapt to it. Got it. Although Qing Xuemei didn't know why her body would have such a change, she had obtained the consciousness of that wisdom plant, so she knew a lot of things. Bam! Just as Ting Nu released her shoulders, she used her arms to support herself from the ground, wanting to sit up. Her whole body was still in a half-sitting position when her body suddenly crashed into the ceiling. In an instant, she hit the steel roof that was tens of meters high. Ouch! As she hit the steel roof, a shallow pit was formed, and the pain made her scream. When her body lightly fell to the ground, she didn't feel any pain at all. Qing Xuemei was dumbfounded. She felt as if she was about to break away from gravity. Her whole body was full of power, but she felt light as a feather. Apart from the pain in her head, the rest of her body couldn't be better. Especially her spirit, which simply felt like it had been completely sublimated. Tan Xiu shook his head and said with a smile, I told you not to use too much strength. You have a lot of power now, but you have no way to fully control it. Only by slowly adapting to it can you gradually control it. This can be considered as the sequela of the sudden increase in strength. Qing Xuemei was somewhat at a loss whether to laugh or cry. She didn't expect that such a situation would happen to her. She carefully and slowly stood up and gently moved her body. The bones in her whole body made cracking sounds, and she was keenly aware that her height had increased a lot, at least by 5 centimeters. Next. After half a day of adaptation, Qing Xuemei was finally able to control some of her power, but it was very little. Just that little bit of improvement made her bump dozens of times, and many parts of her body were in pain. It seems that I need to take you somewhere else to properly train. Tan Xiu took out a set of clothes from his interspatial ring. Although it was men's clothing, Qing Xuemei's height had increased to about 1.73 meters, so it wasn't too big to wear it. You conjured it? Qing Xuemei was dumbfounded. Her eyesight had rapidly improved, but she still couldn't see Tan Xiu's movements clearly. It was like magic. Tan Xiu smiled indifferently and said, the me you knew before isn't the real me. While I help you control your power, I'll tell you some things. After saying that, he said a few more words to Ting Nu and then walked outside. Bumps and bumps were inevitable due to Han Qingwu's condition along the way. Finally, he came to the exit of the relic he left behind and reached out to press a button at the entrance of the passage. This is... Qing Xuemei's pupils shrunk as she watched the closed passage crack open, revealing a space that looked like a cabin inside. There were even 2 activated robots at the entrance. It's called the subaquatic corvette, said Tan Xiu lightly. I gave it a new name. Didn't you notice that we came here without a hitch? To tell you the truth, the entire base is under my control and all the programs have been set up by me. Now, this is the only entrance and exit in the entire relic that can be opened. The rest are all closed, and the people from other countries have already left. We don't have a submarine to pick us up, so we can only leave by the subaquatic corvette. What? Qing Xuemei exclaimed and looked at Tan Xiu in disbelief. Tan Xiu stepped into the subaquatic corvette and indifferently said, don't make a fuss. You know too little about some things, so I'll explain them to you later. You're no longer an ordinary person, and the path you'll take in the future has completely changed. Qing Xuemei shot a complicated look at Tan Xiu. After she stepped into the subaquatic corvette's cabin, the exit passage was closed again, and even the door of the subaquatic corvette slowly closed. Tan Xiu found the control room and quickly entered a series of commands. As the subaquatic corvette began to sail on the seabed, Tan Xiu returned to the main cabin and looked at Han Qingwu with a complicated expression, saying, let me reintroduce myself. I'm Tan Xiu, an immortal cultivator. An immortal cultivator? Qing Xuemei's body trembled. She suddenly seemed to realize something and quickly said, I've only heard of Taoist cultivators, but I've never heard of an immortal cultivator. That's because you don't know much, said Tan Xiu lightly. As a matter of fact, immortal cultivators and Taoist cultivators are essentially the same. It's just that immortal cultivators are at a higher level than Taoist cultivators. What I practice is immortal cultivation, not Taoist. Suppressing the shock inside, Qing Xuemei nodded and said, no wonder you've become so powerful. It turns out that you're an immortal cultivator. Now I completely understand it. Chapter 790. The subaquatic corvette's speed was extremely fast. In just a few minutes, it had sailed to the sea area thousands of miles away from Haiben Island. After the exploration of the instrument, it surfaced near a desolate island. It's here. Tan Xiu stepped out of the hatch and stepped on the calm sea surface as he landed on the island step by step. Qing Xuemei, who was standing at the door of the cabin, had a look of disbelief in her eyes. Although she had become an ability user, it was impossible for her to walk on the surface of the water as if it was flat ground. Come. Qing Xuemei took a deep breath and waved her hand. Earth elements quickly condensed on the island and extended to the cabin door. As she stepped out, she stepped on it and came to Tan Xiu's side. How are you going to help me? Tan Xiu took out a gravity suit from his interspatial ring and handed it to Qing Xuemei, saying, put it on and run on the island. You need to run for 2 hours a day without stopping. Afterward, I'll spar with you so that you can gradually familiarize yourself with your own power. Qing Xuemei was already accustomed to Tan Xiu taking things out of thin air. She nodded and directly put on the suit, which was similar to a mecha suit. Then, she asked with a confused expression, what's the use of this suit? Tan Xiu faintly smiled and pressed his hand on her shoulder. As the red number appeared, the number on it began to change. This is, Qing Xuemei was shocked. She could clearly feel that the clothes she was wearing were becoming heavier and heavier. As the number increased, the weight became heavier and heavier. In just a few seconds, even though she was full of strength, she was still forced to kneel on the ground by the increased gravity. Tan Xiu pressed her shoulder again and the gravity was immediately maintained at the same level. Then, he said, this is a gravity suit with a maximum gravity of 36 times. The gravity you're now withstanding is 12 times, and I think it should be the limit you can bear. Under this gravity, you'll slowly try to walk and then run. When you can run as fast as you can, you'll have completed the first stage. Shall I start now? Qing Xuemei asked in disbelief. Time is money, and wasting it is shameful. Tan Xiu nodded. So, let's start now. I will always be by your side to supervise. Don't disappoint me. Qing Xuemei had a strong will in her bones. Hearing Tan Xiu's words, she struggled to get up from the ground, took a few deep breaths, and then tried to move her legs. Bang! Taking a step forward, Qing Xuemei was unable to control her own strength under the pressure of the 12-fold gravity. Her body swayed a little, and then she fell heavily to the side. Get up and continue. Bang! Get up and continue. Bang! Get up. It was a simple walk, but Qing Xuemei was like a toddler learning to walk. She tried her best to maintain her balance and lifted her legs with all her might. She fell over and over again and got up again and again. Although the process was full of pain, she still gritted her teeth and persevered. An hour and a half later, Qing Xuemei panted heavily and was drenched in sweat. Her complexion was flushed, and blue veins could be faintly seen on her forehead. At this moment, she had nearly reached her limit. She had consumed too much strength in her body, and she felt a faint pain as though she was being pricked by needles. Can I take a break? After falling again, Qing Xuemei didn't immediately get up. Instead, she raised her beautiful face to look at Tan Xiu and asked. There was a bit of pain in her eyes, as well as a bit of expectation. No. Tan Xiu indifferently refused, only by going through the bitterness of hardship can one become a superior person. You need to greatly improve your physical strength, but you also need to challenge your own limits and stimulate your own potential. There's still half an hour left, so you must persist. Qing Xuemei clenched her fists and gritted her teeth as she struggled to stand up. Her body was trembling, and there were some tears of grievance in her eyes as she struggled to walk again. After an hour and a half of hard work, she had made some progress. At the very least, she could maintain her body's balance and walk slowly, but her speed was not as fast as an adult's normal walk. 3 steps later. Under extreme fatigue, she lost control of her body's balance again and heavily fell to the ground. Get up. Tan Xiu coldly said with his hands behind his back. The tears in Qing Xuemei's eyes finally overflowed. She struggled to get up again. This time, it took her nearly half a minute to get up. Step forward. Step forward. Fall down. After repeating this more than a dozen times, there were only about 10 minutes left before the 2 hours were up. She panted heavily and slumped on the ground. She tried to get up several times but failed. But at this moment, the pain in her body gradually turned numb, and there was even a faint itch. I can't do it anymore. Can't you let me rest? The firm and resolute expression on Qing Xuemei's face finally disappeared completely, and a pitiful look appeared on her beautiful face as she asked. If you want to waste time, then forgive me for not accompanying you, said Tan Xiu indifferently. If you don't want to control your own power as soon as possible and become more powerful, then you can rest. Qing Xuemei, you used to be a police officer, and in my opinion, you're quite a strong one. At least, you dared to accept the national mission and risked your life alone in Japan. That's why I can see your potential. The pitiful expression on Qing Xuemei's face slowly disappeared. She angrily glared at Tan Xiu. Even though she knew that he was deliberately provoking her, she still slowly got up. Step forward. Fall down. Finally, after experiencing 3 more falls and getting up, her itchy body felt as if it had been injected with a warm current, and this warm current made her feel a little less stressed. This time, she walked 7 or 8 steps before the warm current dissipated and fell down. Tan Xiu squinted his eyes. Seeing that Qing Xuemei wanted to get up from the ground again, he immediately strode toward her and threw a human meridian chart in front of her. Then, he lightly said, I'll give you 2 hours to rest. During this time, try to remember the meridian routes and acupoints clearly. If you can do it, I'll teach you an immortal cultivation technique. But if you can't, then you'll have to increase the training time by half an hour next time. Qing Xuemei couldn't help but shiver. 2 hours was enough to make her wish she was dead. Adding another half an hour would simply torture her to death. I'll do my best. Whether it was for the immortal cultivation technique or not to increase the training time by half an hour, she made up her mind to do her best to memorize it. 2 hours later. A smile appeared on the corner of Tan Xiu's mouth as he asked, Have you memorized it yet? Qing Xuemei suddenly looked up and hurriedly asked, Is the time up? Yes, replied Tan Xiu with a nod. The corner of Qing Xuemei's mouth twitched a few times. She bitterly shook her head and said, There are too many meridian routes and acupoints on this human meridian chart. I can't even remember half of them. Tan Xiu took out a porcelain bottle and threw it in front of Qing Xuemei. He lightly smiled and said, It's already very good that you can remember nearly half of it. Tomorrow's training will last for 2.5 hours, not even a minute less. This porcelain bottle contains body refining liquid. You can take a bath in the subaquatic corvette. Pour a drop of it in some water and soak it for half an hour. Then, come out and start the next training. Qing Xuemei opened her mouth. She wanted to tell Tan Xiu that she hadn't fully rested yet. But after realizing that Tan Xiu wouldn't change his mind, she could only suppress her anger, get up from the ground, and walk step by step towards the subaquatic corvette. At this time, only then did she realize that the 2-hour gravity training every day was just a joke. It took her 2 hours to come here from the coastline where the subaquatic corvette was docked, and the return journey was the same. Without lifting the gravity training, she would have to spend another 2 hours. She might even need more time since her physical strength hadn't fully recovered. Shameless. Qing Xuemei cursed inwardly, but she still gritted her teeth and went back the way she came. Tan Xiu still followed Qing Xuemei unhurriedly, watching her fall, climb up, and walk again and again. The smile on his face was getting wider and wider. Finally, after 2.5 hours, Qing Xuemei finally returned to the subaquatic corvette. Tan Xiu untied the gravity suit for her and watched her enter the subaquatic corvette. Only then did he suddenly remember that Qing Xuemei didn't know how to use the bathing system in the subaquatic corvette. In desperation, he had to follow her in and personally fill a pool of water for Qing Xuemei. He also poured a drop of body-tempering potion into it before leaving. The next half hour was even more painful for Qing Xuemei. The body-tempering potion changed her physique, but it also made her eyes red with pain. Very comfortable. After soaking, Qing Xuemei left the bath. As soon as she put on her clothes, she felt that all the pain had disappeared and was replaced by a comfortable feeling from the inside to the outside. She could even feel that her strength, which had been completely consumed, was quickly recovering. Tan Xiao sat in the rest area of the subaquatic corvette. There was some food on the table in front of him, which he had taken out of his space ring. I've changed my mind. Let's eat first. After eating and drinking, I'll give you 4 hours to sleep. After that, we'll start the second training. Qing Xuemei's stomach was already rumbling with hunger. When she saw the food on the table, she immediately rushed over and wolfed it down. Then, she patted her belly and burped in satisfaction. There's a bed next door. I've already made the bedding. I'll wake you up in 4 hours. After saying that, Tan Xiao got up and walked towards the cabin door of the subaquatic corvette. It's only been 4 hours. Qing Xuemei muttered in dissatisfaction and then quickly walked towards the next room. She realized that the following training would not be easy, so she needed to seize the time to rest. After a short training, she could feel that her control over her own strength had improved a lot. At the very least, she wouldn't be unable to control herself and randomly bump into things during normal movements. Chapter 791. Jingmen Island. In the dining area of the Everlasting Feast Hall, Duanmu Lin held a cup of God's nectar and sniffed its pure fragrance with an intoxicated expression on his old face. In front of him, Gu Xiaoxue, dressed in a white dress, looked like a pure and clean saintess as she quietly looked at the scene outside the window. The best wine indeed lives up to its reputation. Just the smell alone is enough to arouse my appetite. Little Shui, this old man should have no problem ordering a batch of God's nectar from your everlasting feast hall, right? Duanmu Lin smilingly looked at Gu Xiaoxue and asked. Gu Xiaoxue turned her head and shook her head. Since you like it, why would you order God's nectar from our everlasting feast hall? The magnificent Tang Corporation should be your target, no? Duanmu Lin couldn't help laughing and said, I do want to order from the magnificent Tang Corporation, but that brat, Tan Xiao, has a deep background. I can't bully him even if I want to. I think so. Your everlasting feast hall and the magnificent Tang Corporation should have a deep relationship, so there's no difference between me ordering from you and the magnificent Tang Corporation, right? Gu Xiaoxue slightly furrowed her brows and lightly said, I don't know what you mean by the relationship. Duanmu Lin smilingly said, I know the rules of the magnificent Tang Corporation, but you can get God's nectar so easily. Don't tell me you really have no relationship with them. Gu Xiaoxue was silent for a moment and slowly said, why do you ask when you already know the answer? He's my Grand Master, so I believe this matter can't be concealed from you, no? Duanmu Lin shot a meaningful look at Gu Xiaoxue and nodded. I know. But what I want to know is who your master is. Who was the one who founded the Everlasting Feast Hall? I may be addressed as Little Boss by the people in the Everlasting Feast Hall, but there are at least 5 people who have a higher status than me if we're talking about status. Do you think I dare to tell you since my master doesn't want to deal with the authorities? Duanmu Lin squinted his eyes. A glint flashed in his eyes as he gulped down the cup of God's nectar. At this moment, a stalwart man strode down the stairs and stood in front of Duanmu Lin. He looked at Gu Xiaoxue with vigilance and then whispered in Duanmu Lin's ear, there's news from Haiben Island. Out of the 5 people who entered the 3-star vestige, 4 came out alive. They had the most number of people among the first 3 countries to come out, and they also gained the most. Duanmu Lin slammed his palm on the table, his aged face filled with excitement. Even though he was in front of Gu Xiaoxue, he still hurriedly asked, 4 of them came out alive? Who was the person who sacrificed himself in the ruins? Tan Xiao. The muscular man no longer lowered his voice. Duanmu Lin's excited expression instantly froze, his eyes bursting with disbelief. Gu Xiaoxue, who was sitting opposite him, heard the conversation between the stalwart man and Duanmu Lin clearly. In a flash, she suddenly stood up and shouted, "What did you say? Where did you say my Grand Master sacrificed himself?" The stalwart man frowned. Although he was amazed by Gu Xiaoshua's beauty and temperament, he didn't give any answer. Duanmu Lin's face turned gloomy and he waved to the stalwart man. After the stalwart man left, he took a deep breath and slowly said, "Is Tan Xiu very close to your everlasting feast hall?" "Grand Master's life is more important than mine," said Gu Xiaoshua coldly. "His life is more important than anyone's life in our everlasting feast hall." Duanmu Lin's brows furrowed deeper, and a worried feeling grew inside his heart. Originally, he knew that things would be troublesome when he heard the news of Tan Xiu's death. Even the Tang family would take action, and if the everlasting feast hall were to join the fray, it would be even more troublesome. Gu Xiaoshua shot a deep look at Duanmu Lin and shouted in a deep voice, "Shadow, go tell Master that Grand Master is in danger in Haiben Island." Understood. Only the voice could be heard, but no one could be seen. The air fluctuated for a while before calmness was restored again. Duanmu Lin's complexion changed. Although he knew that many people in the everlasting feast hall practiced martial arts, and some of them even had unfathomable cultivation, the person who just answered him had an absolutely terrifying strength. Even a martial arts grandmaster might not necessarily have such a mysterious and unfathomable concealment ability. Could it be that he's also an ability user? Duanmu Lin couldn't help but reevaluate the power of the everlasting feast hall. At the imperial capital. At the Tang family's ancestral residence, Tang Guisheng was sitting comfortably on a rattan chair while tasting the fragrant tea in front of him. Tang Min, who rarely had the time, chatted with him. "Dad, your grandson is really a talent. He's really decisive in dealing with the Qingyuan group in Mist Source Island, and the one who benefited the most is his future wife, Mu Weining. Weining just returned to Shanghai from Mist Source Island last night. She called me and said that she'll come to Shanghai to visit you and Mom in a few days," said Tang Min with a beaming smile while drinking a cup of fragrant tea. A satisfied smile hung on Tang Guisheng's old face as he nodded and said, "Why would he push away the benefits when he can? He handled it well, very well. Even if that brat of the Mu family doesn't feel happy, won't he still have to look at Xiu's face in the future? It's just a pity that Xiu is still too young. I can't wait to pass the patriarch position to him in 8 or 10 years. I reckon that even if you want to pass the patriarch position to Xiu, he won't accept it," said Tang Min with a smile. "How can a sparrow and a swallow know the ambition of a great swan? To be honest, even I don't know what Xiu is ultimately plotting. But I'm sure that it will definitely be beyond our imagination. Don't exaggerate." Tang Guisheng couldn't help but laugh. Could it be that he's also plotting for immortality? Tang Min's expression moved and she said with a faint smile, "I think it's reasonable even if he's plotting for immortality. Don't forget that he's an immortal cultivator. An immortal cultivator can live for a very long time as long as he cultivates to a very high level." The smile on Tang Guisheng's face slowly receded. He was silent for a long while before he said in a deep voice, "If he dares to plot for immortality, my Tang family is willing to give him a hand even if we have to risk everything." Immortality, hee. Even if he can live for hundreds of years, our Tang family can become the real #1 family in China. I'm afraid we won't be weaker than those foreign families that have been established for hundreds of years. If Xiu can really live for hundreds of years, then I'll be basking in his glory," said Tang Min with a smile. At this moment, the ringtone of a mobile phone on the table interrupted Tang Min's words. Tang Guisheng grabbed the phone and looked at the name on the screen. His expression suddenly moved as he picked up the call and smilingly said, "Brother Duanmu, could it be that the exploration of the 3-star vestige is over? Xiu didn't do anything earth-shattering, did he? Tan Xiu sacrificed himself." Duanmu Lin's bitter voice came from the phone. "What did you say?" Tang Guisheng stared blankly for a moment before he suddenly jumped from the rattan chair and shouted sternly, "Cut the crap, Duanmu Lin. I know better than anyone else how capable my grandson is. I dare say that no one in this world who can kill him has been born yet. I just received the news that all the passages to the 3-star vestige have been completely sealed. Only members from 3 countries have come out of the vestige alive, said Duanmu Lin helplessly. They are from Huaxia, Japan, and South Korea respectively. The other 4 members of our 5-man team all came out alive. Only Tan Xiu, he didn't come out. I heard from the team captain, Zhu Long, that after the 5 of them went deep into the vestige, Tan Xiu proposed to act alone. Later on, his whereabouts were unknown. Tang Guosheng panted heavily and angrily shouted, "That's impossible. I absolutely don't believe that my grandson died in that trifling 3-star vestige. Where are you now?" "I'll go there immediately." Duanmu Lin hesitated for a moment before he helplessly said, "I'm on the way to Haiben Island. The other countries that didn't come out alive will find it hard to accept the result of the exploration of the vestige, so I need to go there to solve it." "Haiben Island, right? Wait for me." Tang Guosheng hung up the phone and fiercely kicked the table in front of him. Then, he roared, "Gather all the members of the 1st and 2nd Guardian squads and immediately follow me to Haiben Island. Tell them that their chances of coming back alive are nearly 0 if they leave with me this time." Instantly, the blood drained from Tang Min's face. She had heard a lot of grievous news in her life, but this one had never given her such a big impact. "My nephew sacrificed himself? Impossible." Tang Min roared inwardly as she turned around and ran outside. At the same time, 2 burly middle-aged men exuding a valiant aura rushed out from the corner of the courtyard. Without any hesitation, they also rushed outside the courtyard. 10 minutes later, dozens of cars appeared in the vicinity of the Tang family's ancestral residence. A stocky man in a black training suit got into the car. Accompanied by Tang Min, Tang Guosheng strode into a car. As the car's door closed, dozens of cars roared and drove away. The Tang family's clansmen everywhere received the news that the old patriarch flew into a rage for some unknown reason and left with all the members of the 1st and 2nd Guardian squads. For a time, all the Tang family's clansmen were shocked and rushed toward the Tang family's ancestral residence without stopping. They were perfectly aware that the Tang family's most secretive 1st and 2nd Guardian squads were the Tang family's most powerful defense team. In the past, only when the Tang family was in the most dangerous and critical juncture would all the members of these 2 squads be dispatched. Could it be, did the Tang family encounter a serious life and death crisis? However, before they arrived at the Tang family's ancestral residence, another news came. The old patriarch issued an order that all the members of the 1st and 2nd Guardian squads would have 0 chance of coming back alive this time. This is the Iron Order of the Deathsworn. Chapter 792. The Tang family's Death Warrior Iron Order was a special order. Once the Tang family's patriarch issued the order, all the members of the 1st and 2nd Guardian squads would have the opportunity to withdraw. If they chose not to withdraw, they would have to face the crisis of life and death together with the Tang family's patriarch. At this moment, all the core members of the Tang family trembled. They realized that something big had happened to the Tang family. Moreover, this was the 4th time since the Tang family had been established that it had faced a life and death crisis. Half a day later, all the big shots in the imperial capital had received the news of the Tang family's unusual movements. For a time, the big shots of various forces continuously sent intelligence personnel to figure out what happened to the Tang family and why Tang Guosheng left the Tang family and the imperial capital with great fanfare. In the vast sea, a liner was braving the wind and waves as it rushed toward the Strait of Malacca. Inside a beautifully decorated room in the cabin, Duanmu Lin's brows were tightly furrowed. He had received the news from the imperial capital that Tang Guosheng was coming with a large number of people. "Boss, there's a fishing boat ahead. According to the signal released from there, it's our people." A short middle-aged man in a training suit quickly appeared in the room. Duanmu Lin's expression shifted and he strode out of the room. When he came to the bow deck, he saw Zhu Long's group of 4 standing on the approaching fishing boat. Duanmulin's mood was very complicated. China had won a great victory this time and got the most benefits, which made him excited and pleasantly surprised. But Tan Xiu couldn't come out of the 3-star vestige alive, which made him a bit sad and helpless. Boss! Boss! As the liner and fishing boat approached, Zhu Long, Fire Devil, Electro Lady, and Aquababe jumped on the liner and respectfully greeted Duanmulin. Duanmulin nodded and said in a deep voice, "You did a great job, even better than I expected. But now is not the time to know about the spoils of war. Tell me, what's the situation with Tan Xiu? Can we talk about something happy, boss?" Zhu Long forced a smile. "Do you think I don't want to talk about something happy?" Duanmulin helplessly said. Now, the Tang family was ready to make a move, and Tang Guisheng personally led a large group of people here. Besides, there's also the everlasting feast hall that I can't figure out. With all these troubles added together, it will be hard for me to explain if I can't handle it well. The Tang family? What does this have to do with the Tang family? Asked Zhu Long with a frown. Duanmulin said, "Tan Xiu is Tang Guisheng's grandson. What do you think?" Zhu Long's expression changed slightly, and even Fire Devil, Electro Lady, and Aquababe couldn't help changing their expressions. If it was in the past, they would not have cared about the Tang family. After all, for ability users like them who possessed miraculous powers, ordinary families would not pose much of a threat to them no matter how powerful they were. However, ever since the Manchurian tiger was eliminated by the Tang family and the Yao family was destroyed by the Tang family, they didn't dare to look down on the Tang family even though they were paranormals. After all, the Manchurian tiger was a renowned cultivator, and the Yao clan was filled with experts. From this, it could be seen that the Tang family's resources were unfathomable. What kind of force is the Everlasting Feast Hall, boss? Why haven't I heard of it before? Zhu Long took a deep breath to calm his mind and asked. The Everlasting Feast Hall's headquarters is in Jingmen Island, said Duanmulin. On the surface, it's just a restaurant with a few branches, but it has a very terrifying force in the background. Just from my observation, I can tell that the Everlasting Feast Hall has a lot of martial artists, and many of them are at least at the level of martial arts grandmaster. Further, the founder of the Everlasting Feast Hall is very mysterious, and even I can't figure out who he is. But... Zhu Long's expression shifted and he quickly asked, "But what?" "The founder of the Everlasting Feast Hall is Tan Xiu's disciple," said Duanmulin helplessly. Hiss, Zhu Long and the other 3 gasped at the same time. After a long while, Zhu Long hurriedly said, "So to say, the Everlasting Feast Hall is actually a force of the Tang family? That's exactly what makes me feel uneasy." Duanmulin shook his head. The Everlasting Feast Hall doesn't belong to the Tang family at all. I've sent people to investigate for a long time, but they have yet to find any connection between them. If I must say that there is a connection between them, then it's Tan Xiu. Suddenly, a surging momentum covered the sky and covered the earth. The dozens of ability users on the liner, including Duanmulin and Zhu Long's group of 4, all had their complexions greatly changed. They felt as though a mountain was pressing down on their heads, and it only lasted for half a second before they knelt on the ground and propped their hands on the ground. Like a fairy from the 9th heaven who had descended to the mortal world, Gu Yan was also clad in a white dress, but there was a faint mature temperament exuding from her. When she appeared on the liner's deck with Gu Xiaoxue, even Duanmulin, who possessed an extremely powerful ability, was oppressed and couldn't lift his head. "I, Gu Yan, am Tan Xiu's disciple, and also his most beloved disciple. The Everlasting Feast Hall is just a small business that I casually established." Tempestuous waves rose inside Duanmulin's heart, along with an intense fear. He was very strong. In fact, if he were to attack, even the Manchurian tiger that had been killed might not be a match for him. However, the strength of the newcomer had already exceeded the scope of his understanding. He wanted to raise his head, but he found that his body had been imprisoned by the imposing aura. No matter how much strength he exerted, he couldn't lift his head even half a bit. He wanted to speak, but he found that he couldn't even make a sound. He couldn't even move his throat. He felt that he was like an ant, and the person who had just arrived was like a towering mountain that was tens of thousands of feet tall. A bit of killing intent could be seen in Gu Yen's eyes. After restraining the aura she released, she gently stretched out her hand. Suddenly, a stream of energy wrapped around Duan Mulin's neck, lifting him up and hanging him in front of her. Then, she coldly said, "Tell me everything about my master entering the 3-star vestige. If you dare to utter even half a word of lies, I'll kill all of you." Duan Mulin desperately struggled a few times, only to find that he couldn't break free at all. With no other choice, he could only grab the stream of energy and awkwardly said, "It's true that I invited Tan Xiu to participate in the exploration of the 3-star vestige, but I didn't expect that he would be in danger. The ones who participated in the 3-star vestige were 4 of my men, so maybe they can explain it in more detail than I can." Gu Yan flicked her fingers and threw Duan Mulin on the deck. Then, she shifted her eyes to Zhu Long's group of 4 and indifferently said, "It's you?" Zhu Long's group of 4 crawled up from the deck, trembling with fear. Although they were shocked by Gu Yen's beauty, they didn't dare to have the slightest blasphemous thought. Zhu Long respectfully bowed and saluted. Then, with a pale face, he said, "Senior, we did participate in the exploration of the 3-star vestige with Tan Xiu. It's like this." After hearing Zhu Long's narration, Gu Yan finally figured out the whole story. Afterward, she coldly glanced at Duan Mulin and indifferently said, "You're just a bunch of little guys who are blessed by heaven and have mastered some small abilities. You simply don't know the immensity of heaven and earth. It's your luck that my master can go with you to explore the 3-star vestige. Remember, you're not allowed to investigate the everlasting feast hall in the future, nor do you care about the existence of the everlasting feast hall. We don't care about politics, nor do we care about the country. In my eyes, the most important thing is my master. If any of you dare to disturb my master or find trouble with us again, I won't mind destroying you." Having said that, she took Gu Xiaoxue and instantly disappeared from the liner's deck. On the liner's deck, the shock inside Duan Mulin's heart hadn't dissipated for a long time. He stared at the spot where Gu Yan just stood. He wanted to say something, but he didn't know what to say. Finally, "Do you believe in immortals in this world, boss?" asked Zhu Long with a complicated expression. Duan Mulin slowly turned his head and was silent for a while before saying bitterly, "I would never believe it if it were before. But at this moment, I have no choice but to believe it. Boss, that Gu Yan claims to be Tan Xiu's disciple, but we've seen Tan Xiu's strength. He's indeed very strong, but compared to that Gu Yan, he's worlds apart," said Zhu Long. "What exactly is going on here? Also, I'm guessing that this Gu Yan is a cultivator, and one with an extremely terrifying cultivation. So, Tan Xiu is also a cultivator?" "You guessed it right." Duan Mulin nodded. "Tan Xiu is indeed a cultivator. This is also the main reason why I invited him to participate in the exploration of the 3-star vestige. Legend has it that when a cultivator's cultivation reaches the peak, they will have to face the heavenly tribulation. If they can successfully cross the tribulation, they will be able to break the shackles and tear the space to ascend to a higher level, the immortal world. I used to think of this legend as a fairy tale. But now it seems that it's very likely to be true." Hiss, hiss. Zhu Long's group of 4 sucked in a cold breath at the same time. They felt that if Duan Mulin's guess was correct, then the everlasting feast hall was definitely a terrifying existence. They could even rule the entire earth with ease, right? No. If Tan Xiu wanted to rule the entire earth now, wouldn't it be a piece of cake for him? They recalled Gu Yen's terrifying strength and the identity of Tan Xiu mentioned by Gu Yan. For a moment, intense fear was birthed inside their hearts. If Tan Xiu really had such an idea, then Duan Mulin also had the same worry, but what made him feel better was that Gu Yan had just made it clear that she didn't care about politics or the country. As for Tan Xiu, he didn't seem to be an ambitious person. Otherwise, wouldn't he be able to become the ruler of China if he wanted to? Countless thoughts flashed in Duan Mulin's mind. After a long time, he calmly looked at the dozens of fearful ability users under his command and said in a deep voice, "Convey my order. No one from any department is allowed to provoke Tan Xiu, the everlasting feast hall, the magnificent Tang Corporation, and the Tang family of the imperial capital from now on." Chapter 793. The vast sea was surging with turbulent waves. Gu Yan suppressed her cultivation to a very low level. Even though she revealed her strength in front of Duan Mulin and the others, she only revealed less than 1% of her aura. Even so, she could faintly sense the fluctuation of the heavenly Tao aura and the threat it brought to her. Flying high in the air, her spiritual sense continuously spread out. Even under the suppression of the heavenly Tao, her spiritual sense could still cover a radius of 500 kilometers. Will Grand Master really encounter danger, Master? Gu Xiaoshue's eyes were full of worry and her heart was extremely depressed. She didn't even realize that her worry for Tan Xiu had caused problems in her Tao heart, which she had tempered for many years. It could be said that her mind was already in a mess. "I believe in him. He has a way to survive even if the entire earth is destroyed," said Gu Yan, coldly. "Because he's my master." Gu Xiaoshua calmed down a bit and asked, "Then, are we going directly to the 3-star vestige? You should be able to reopen it, right? I know about the several forces in the universe whose technological civilizations have developed to the peak. They also have very strong armed forces," said Gu Yan, indifferently. "But 3-star civilizations are pitifully weak in the universe. At my peak, I can destroy a 3-star civilization with a flick of my finger." Gu Xiaoshua's heart trembled and she asked the last question she was worried about. "Can your body withstand it?" Gu Yan, calmly nodded and calmly said, "It won't affect me for a short time. Don't worry about it." Suddenly, Gu Yan's expression shifted and she instantly sped up with Gu Xiaoshua, flying toward the southeast about 500 kilometers away. In just a few breaths, she appeared on a desolate island. On the island, Tan Xiu blocked Qing Xuemei's attack without batting an eyelid. Although Qing Xuemei's strength had advanced by leaps and bounds, she couldn't bring the slightest threat to Tan Xiu. At this moment, Qing Xuemei was already sweating profusely. She gritted her teeth and attacked with all her might. If she continued to attack at this level, she would fall to the ground due to exhaustion in a few minutes. "Stop!" Tan Xiu instantly dodged Qing Xuemei's attack and appeared beside her. He pressed his right hand heavily on Qing Xuemei's shoulder and looked at Gu Yan'er and Gu Xiaoshue who appeared nearby. "Why are you guys here?" When Gu Xiaoshue saw Tan Xiu clearly, a look of surprise appeared on her beautiful face. She rushed over and shouted, "Grand Master, it's great that you're fine." Tan Xiu was stunned. His gaze shifted from Gu Xiaoshue to Gu Yan'er. When he released Qing Xuemei's shoulder, he asked, "What happened?" Gu Yan'er strode forward and was already standing in front of Tan Xiu. With a smile on her beautiful face, she skillfully held Tan Xiu's arm and said, "Duan Mulin of the State Special Abilities Bureau is spouting nonsense, saying that you died in the 3-star vestige. We were about to rush there to find you, but we didn't expect you to be flirting with a beauty here." Tan Xiu sniffed the special fragrance of Gu Yan'er and let her hold his arm. Then, he smilingly said, "Duan Mulin is spouting nonsense. Why are you spouting nonsense too? Anyways, let me introduce you. This is Qing Xuemei, a friend I've known since I regained consciousness. Due to special reasons, she participated in the exploration of the 3-star vestige on behalf of Japan and obtained the memory and power of an intelligent plant. It's a pity that she can't control her sudden increase in power, so I took some time to train her and help her control her power." Gu Yan'er immediately understood and nodded to Qing Xuemei with a smile. Then, she said, "Do you want me to help you train her, Master?" Tan Xiu didn't answer the question and instead asked, "You came out like this. How's your injury?" It's just that I came out for a short time, so it's not a big problem. Gu Yenner chuckled and said, at most, it'll just delay my recuperation time. I'm relieved as long as you're safe and sound. Tan Xiu thought for a moment before he slowly shook his head and said, the sooner your injury heals, the sooner I can feel at ease. I'm fine here, so you can rest assured. Listen to me and immediately return to Jingmen Island to recuperate. I'll help Qing Xuemei control her power and then I'll go to Jingmen Island to see you. Gu Yenner thought for a while and suddenly said, I can go back, but let Xiaoxue stay to help you. Her strength has been progressing very fast recently and she's just a step away from breaking through to the golden core stage. Perhaps she can speed up her breakthrough if she stays by your side. Tang Xiu turned to look at the expectant Gu Xiaoxue. He then nodded and said, all right then. Let Xiaoxue stay. Despite saying that, Gu Yenner didn't look like she wanted to leave. Her eyes looked at Tan Xiu's handsome face as if there was only Tan Xiu left in her world. Tan Xiu looked at her appearance and felt somewhat helpless inside. However, Gu Yenner rushed over because she was worried about him, so he couldn't drive her away immediately. Therefore, he could only look at Gu Xiaoxue and said, you'll be Qing Xuemei's sparring partner until she's too tired to get up. Also, let her rest for 2 hours and then start running. She knows how to persevere. All right. Gu Xiaoxue gently nodded. Tan Xiu took Gu Yenner to the subaquatic corvette and took out some stored fruits from his interspatial ring. Then, he chuckled and said, have some fruits and chat. All right. Gu Yenner took the fruits without hesitation. As clear water condensed in front of her, she directly washed the fruits in the clear water. Then, she waved her hand to disperse the floating water and smilingly said, have an apple, master. On the deserted island. Qing Xuemei's expression was a bit complicated as she watched Tan Xiu and Gu Yenner leave. She wanted to call out to Tan Xiu several times, but every time the words reached her mouth, she swallowed them back. The more she saw through Tan Xiu, the more mysterious he became. Let's go. Gu Xiaoxue smiled and calmly looked at Qing Xuemei. Qing Xuemei nodded silently. 2 mud dragons instantly rushed out and wrapped around Gu Xiaoxue's bare feet. The mud energy in all directions formed mud spikes and shot toward Gu Xiaoxue. At the same time, Qing Xuemei dashed toward Gu Xiaoxue. Her seemingly light punch contained tremendous power. What a pity. Qing Xuemei thought that after a few minutes of rest, she had recovered some of her strength and could easily knock down the girl in front of her. But the result made her expression drastically change. Gu Xiaoxue's legs trembled and a wave of qi instantly burst out from her legs. Almost in an instant, the 2 mud dragons were shattered and lost their binding effect. The mud needles that shot from all directions were also smashed by Gu Xiaoxue with a wave of her hand. Bam! Qing Xuemei's fist was easily caught by Gu Xiaoxue. With a gentle push, Qing Xuemei's body retreated more than 10 meters and staggered to stabilize her figure. She's so strong. Qing Xuemei was shocked. She never thought that Gu Xiaoxue, who seemed to be younger than her, would have such a powerful strength. Although her attack power was only 60% to 70% of her peak, it was like child's play in the eyes of her opponent. Let's continue. Gu Xiaoxue chuckled. Qing Xuemei gritted her teeth and moved again. A few minutes later, Qing Xuemei finally fell to the ground due to exhaustion. She looked at Gu Xiaoxue, who was spotless and didn't even leave a stain on her white dress. She was completely convinced and asked, are all cultivators so powerful? I feel that my strength has increased dozens of times, yet I can't even beat Tan Xiu. Now, I'm so much weaker than you. You're not weak, actually, said Gu Xiaoxue with a smile. It's just that you don't seem to be able to fully use your own power. Grand Master said that he'll find a way to let you control your own power, so I can be your sparring partner in the following days. Thank you. Qing Xuemei was grateful. You don't need to thank me. Gu Xiaoxue smiled. I'm just carrying out the task given to me by Grand Master. If you want to thank someone, thank him. That's right, How should I train you next? Qing Xuemei couldn't help laughing and said, let me rest. I'm too tired. After hesitating for a moment, Gu Xiaoxue nodded and said, then rest. Qing Xuemei slowly sat cross-legged and took out the human meridian chart from her pocket. Then, she began to seriously memorize every meridian and acupoint on it. Gu Xiaoxue was surprised. Tan Xiu said that if I can memorize all the meridians and acupoints on this human meridian chart, he'll teach me a set of immortal cultivation technique. Qing Xuemei looked up and said. Gu Xiaoxue suddenly understood and said with a smile, if that's the case, then I welcome you to join us. Join you? What do you mean? Asked Qing Xuemei curiously. Didn't Grand Master tell you that once you learn an immortal cultivation technique from him, you'll belong to our everlasting feast hall? Asked Gu Xiaoxue in astonishment. No, he didn't. Qing Xuemei shook her head. It doesn't matter if he didn't tell you. Gu Xiaoxue smiled and said, in short, just remember it. Your background and foundation will be our everlasting feast hall in the future. You must not betray us and must obey the orders of the everlasting feast hall's top brass. Of course, the most distinguished person in our everlasting feast hall is you, Grand Master. Qing Xuemei was silent for a moment and then slowly said, I used to be a policewoman, but I'm now a member of the Special Abilities Bureau. I've never thought about joining the everlasting feast hall. I'm afraid that the leaders of the Special Abilities Bureau won't agree to it. A touch of disdain appeared on Gu Xiaoxue's face as she indifferently said, would your Special Abilities Bureau's people dare to disagree? We met someone from your Special Abilities Bureau on the way here. Although I don't know what status that old man surnamed Duanmu has in the Special Abilities Bureau, I'm afraid he won't dare to be an enemy of the everlasting feast hall for the rest of his life. What do you mean? Asked Qing Xuemei with a puzzled expression. Master can destroy the entire Special Abilities Bureau with a flick of his finger if he wants to, said Gu Xiaoxue with a faint smile. If Grand Master agrees, all the ability users in the Special Abilities Bureau will turn into ashes in a flash. Just now, dozens of ability users from the Special Abilities Bureau knelt in front of my master and couldn't even lift their heads. Chapter 794. Although Gu Yan wanted to stay with Tan Xiu for a while, she was still injured and reluctantly left. Tan Xiu directly handed over the task of training Qing Xuemei to her and then stayed in the subaquatic corvette to cultivate quietly. In the blink of an eye, it was the third day since Tan Xiu and Qing Xuemei arrived on this island. Tan Xiu had no idea that hundreds of nautical miles away from him, two liners were braving the wind and waves, sailing toward the direction of the Strait of Malacca. Tang Guosheng and the members of the Tang family's first and second guardian squads were on these two liners. The vast sea was surging with turbulent waves. On the leading liner, Tang Guosheng stood straight as a cold light flashed in his wise and far-sighted eyes. The bad news from Duanmu Lin was hard for him to accept. He even made up his mind to find his grandson, Tan Xiu, even if he had to blast open the underwater vestige. If his grandson was alive, he wanted to see him, if his grandson was dead, he wanted to see his corpse. Report. A loud and clear voice came from outside the door. Tang Min, who was behind Tang Guosheng, opened the door and saw the captain of the first guardian squad, Tang Rong, standing outside. She asked in a deep voice, what's the matter? Through the binoculars, there's a fleet in front of us on the left, said Tang Rong. 2 cruisers, a destroyer, and a medium-sized liner. We can judge that it's F country's fleet based on the pattern printed on the hull. Tang Guosheng turned around and looked at Tang Rong, who was coming out of the door, and asked, according to the information from Duanmu Lin, the F country's team that entered the 3-star vestige was completely annihilated inside? Yes. Tang Rong nodded silently. Tang Guosheng coldly snorted and said, there's no need to contact them since all the F country's team members died inside. However, be vigilant. F country's people didn't get any benefits this time, so they're probably angry out of shame. Be careful not to provoke us. I understand. Tang Rong nodded cautiously and turned to walk outside. Just as he took a few steps, a young man dashed over and reported in a deep voice, "Captain, the F Nations liner has already left the fleet's route and is heading in our direction. Send the order to avoid that liner as much as possible." "Don't meet them," said Tang Rong in a deep voice. "If the other party pursues us relentlessly, then we'll make other plans." 20 minutes later. Even though the two liners that the Tang family members were on had deviated from their course and were prepared to go around the other party still attempted to intercept the two liners. Therefore, Tang Guisheng personally came to the cockpit. Although he didn't want to get into trouble, but since trouble had come knocking on his door, he didn't want to avoid it again and again given his character. He said in a deep voice, "Send a signal to them and ask them what they want." After a while, Tang Rong said with a gloomy face, "Chief, they want us to stop sailing. They want us to be inspected." Killing intent burst out from Tang Guisheng's eyes as he said in an awe-inspiring tone, "This is international waters. What right does the F country's liner have to inspect us? Tell them to leave immediately, else it will be regarded as a provocation and they will be attacked by us." Tang Rong complied. After communicating with the other party, he finally determined that the other party didn't come with good intentions. Tang Guisheng was silent for a few seconds and then issued the order to stop the ship. As the other liner approached, Tang Guisheng appeared on the deck with more than a dozen people. Moreover, he clearly saw that a dozen people had also appeared in the cabin of the other party's liner. The strong man in the lead had a gloomy expression on his face, and there was a sheathed long saber hanging from his waist. The people around him also carried cold weapons, and almost all of them were long sabers and swords. Get ready to fight. Despite his old age, Tang Guisheng was, after all, a decisive person. He immediately issued the order upon seeing the weapons carried by the other party. Whoosh! 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 4 figures shot out from the other liner. Their speed was extremely fast. The distance of 20 to 30 meters was like a sharp arrow. They didn't borrow any force in the air and directly dashed to the front of Tang Guisheng. At the moment when the 4 of them were in a defensive posture, the strong man in the lead leaped into the air and stood in front of the 4 in just 1 or 2 breaths. Humph. Chinese? The strong man snorted coldly and the killing intent in his eyes turned more intense. Tang Guisheng looked at the strong man as though he was facing a formidable enemy and said in a deep voice, "That's right. We're Chinese. But you people from the F country didn't get any benefits from the 3-star vestige, yet you actually came to us to cause trouble. You're just courting death." The strong man sneered and said, "I didn't expect you to know about the 3-star vestige. It seems that your identity is not simple. Maybe those 4 Chinese guys who came out of the 3-star vestige are hiding in your 2 liners." Tang Guisheng sneered and said, "Hide? Do you think our Chinese experts still need to hide?" The strong man disdainfully said, "Then what's the point of hiding if there's no need to hide? Tell them to come out and hand over the things they got from the 3-star vestige and I'll leave your corpses intact. Otherwise, don't blame me for being cruel and merciless and killing everyone on these 2 liners. Just you." Tang Rong strode a few steps forward in an instant and fiercely punched the strong man. He was an elite expert cultivated by the Tang family since childhood. He had broken through to the martial arts grandmaster realm at the age of 35 and then retired from the army. After 12 years of cultivation, he reached the peak of the martial arts grandmaster realm half a year ago. Later on, he was sent to the Everlasting Feast Hall to undergo rigorous training and cultivation before he finally broke through and reached a higher level. At present, he was not inferior to a mid-stage chi refining expert. A look of surprise appeared in the burly man's eyes. A ball of flame instantly formed between his raised hands, and then he pushed it forward forcefully, colliding with Tang Rong's fist. Boom! Tang Rong's expression changed drastically. As his fist collided with the flames, the high temperature instantly turned his fist red. The 2 fire snakes broke free from the flames and bombarded his chest along his arm. It was just one hit. Tang Rong, who was comparable to a mid-stage qi refining expert, was sent flying and seriously injured. The strong man didn't follow up with another attack. Instead, he mocked with an arrogant expression, "You want to fight me with such little power? You're simply overestimating yourself. I've warned you to hand over everything you got from the 3-star vestige, else I don't mind killing you all." Tang Guosheng's expression changed drastically. He never dreamed that the strong man in front of him turned out to be an ability user and a terrifying one at that. The experts he brought this time were the top armed forces of the Tang family, and Tang Rong was ranked first among them. However, how could Tang Rong be defeated so easily? Moreover, he was seriously injured. At this moment, Tang Guosheng faintly felt bitter in his mouth. What kind of status did he have? Aside from that Amur tiger from before, when had he ever been forced by others? Dad! Tang Min appeared near Tang Guosheng with 2 men and 2 women. With a bit of worry on her face, she first propped Tang Rong up and then looked at Tang Guosheng. Tang Guosheng took a deep breath and ignored Tang Min. Instead, he stared at the strong man and said, "You're indeed very strong, but are these people you brought as strong as you? The number of experts on our 2 liners is definitely not less than yours. Are you sure you'll still have a lot of people left after you kill us all?" The strong man sneered and said, "With just you? You think you can make us suffer heavy losses? Ha ha ha, since when did you Chinese learn how to be an alarmist?" "Alarmist?" Tang Guosheng indifferently replied. "Just give the order if you think I'm just being an alarmist. This is the depths of the sea, so it's very easy to destroy the corpses here. I wanna see if we'll all be killed or if you and your men will die here." The strong man hesitated. Although he was very confident in his men, the enemy who just attacked him was not a weakling. At the very least, there were no more than 3 people among his men who were stronger than him. It would be impossible for him to kill these people easily if there were more people among these Huaxia people who could be comparable to the man just now. "I don't want to kill anyone. I just want the things your Huaxia people got from the 3-star vestige. Hand them over and we'll leave immediately. Don't say that you've got the wrong people. I won't give them to you even if we really have them," said Tang Guosheng in a deep voice. The strong man was silent for a moment and slowly said, "If that's the case, then I'll take a step back. Whatever you get, we can split equally. If it's scientific knowledge, we can share it. This is the bottom line I can bear, old geezer. Don't challenge my bottom line. Are you sure that the things in the 3-star vestige are with us?" asked Tang Guosheng. "Yeah," said the strong man bluntly. Tang Guosheng took a deep breath and retreated a few steps back. Then, he fiercely shouted, "Heed my order, everyone. Immediately fight back if these guys dare to attack us. We don't plan to go out alive this time, so we must drag them to the underworld with us even if we die in battle." Affirmative. Dozens of members of the Tang family's 1st and 2nd Guardian squads appeared from the cabin. The total number of the 2 squads was 62 people, and there were still 61 people who could fight. Tang Guosheng knew that the 2 men and 2 women brought by Tang Min were also very powerful. They were experts sent by Tan Xiu to protect the Tang family. "Fucking old geezer." The strong man cursed and raised his hands. 2 fire dragons instantly formed in front of his fingers. He took a step forward and waved his arms. The 2 fire dragons bared their fangs and brandished their claws as they pounced towards Tang Guosheng. Chapter 795. Tang Guosheng's complexion changed, while Tang Min looked horrified. She quickly blocked in front of Tang Guosheng and shouted, "Kill them." In an instant. Of the 2 men and 2 women who had been standing behind Tang Min, one of the women instantly appeared in front of Tang Min. As a terrifying aura was released from her body, the long sword on her back instantly flew out of its scabbard. The moment she grabbed the sword in her hand, layers of sword shadows sprinkled out. A gust of wind instantly surged. The water splashed from both sides of the liner. The billowing airwaves were accompanied by layers of overlapping sword images as they swept over the two fire dragons in an instant. The stalwart man only felt darkness in front of him as the two fire dragons were bombarded and smashed into pieces, sparks splashing everywhere. The oncoming sword images made his pupils shrink, and he fiercely pushed forward with both hands. Firewall. Like a spider web, layers of densely packed flame lines quickly condensed and eventually formed a thick firewall. The billowing flames were continuously injected into the firewall and then pressed toward the sword images in front. Boom, the stalwart man's body trembled and he instantly retreated. The moment the two streams of fire formed on the sea surface, his body flew back to their liner. At the same time, the 4F country paranormals who were originally behind him started to use their abilities. A whistling tornado was formed, and numerous water arrows were shot out. The two types of abilities complemented each other, and their speed was pushed to the limit. At the moment when the firewall was broken, they fiercely rushed forward. Arg! The four people were sent flying by the billowing airwaves. As they were flying upside down, a wind elementalist on the liner behind them released several wind belts and finally rolled them back to the liner's deck. The middle-aged woman who waved the long sword retreated 3 steps back and then stabilized her figure. Her sharp eyes stared at the stalwart man and sneered, "You're just a trifling ability user, yet you dare to come out and rob us? Are you F country people so arrogant?" The stalwart man's expression turned a bit ugly. He also stared at the middle-aged woman and shouted in a deep voice, "Who the hell are you? Also, how can the power you just used be so strong?" The middle-aged woman sneered and couldn't be bothered to pay attention to him. She nodded at the astonished Tang Min and returned behind her. "Are the 4 of you about the same strength?" asked Tang Min hurriedly. The middle-aged woman replied, "More or less." "If the 4 of you take action, can you kill the leader?" asked Tang Min again. The middle-aged woman nodded and said, "If it were me, it would have taken me quite a bit of effort to kill him, and even the whole liner would have been destroyed. If the 2 of us join forces, it will be enough to kill him. As for the 4 of us working together, he won't be able to leave this sea region even if he has 2 lives." "Then what are we waiting for?" Tang Min excitedly asked. "Go and kill them now. The F nation really deserves to die. Don't attack yet." Tang Guisheng quickly said, "The other party has quite a number of people and their strength is not to be underestimated. I'll have them retreat first. If they don't retreat, it won't be too late to make a move then." He was shocked by the strength of the middle-aged woman sent by his grandson, Tang Xiuxiu, to the Tang family. Recalling how he had once ignored these people, Tang Guisheng instantly recalled his grandson's words that all the core members of the Everlasting Feast Hall were cultivators. At this moment, he looked at the ability users on the opposite liner and no longer had any fear in his heart. He held his head high and chest out as he looked at the big man and shouted in a deep voice, "This is the last warning. Retreat quickly, else your threat to me will come true." Although the big man was a bit startled, he wasn't scared at all. He even had a trump card up his sleeve. Therefore, he let out a wild and unruly laugh and said, "Relying on a woman? Just like scaring us away. You old geezer, your head must have been kicked by a donkey. Plenty, it's all up to you now." "No problem." A woman with an enchanting figure and revealing attire swayed her willow-slender waist as she took a few steps forward. Along with a series of tender laughter, a drizzle suddenly fell from the sky. Behind her, 6 men and women in dark blue attire, holding various utensils in their hands, rose into the air at the same time. The already turbulent sea around the liner they were on suddenly became unbearably violent under the same strength of the sea breeze. As waves exploded, pillars of water suddenly shot up into the sky. A total of 72 pillars of water rapidly rotated and absorbed the misty drizzle around them. "Be careful, don't overturn the liner." Tang Min stood on the deck, but her body swayed a few times. In a flash, the 4 men and women with swords on their backs behind her were like cannonballs that blasted out and instantly appeared on the opposite liner. As the 4 swords rotated and crisscrossed, they instantly arranged the 4 symbols sword array. A terrifying aura burst out from the four symbols' sword array, causing the thicker water columns in the surroundings to faintly distort. Flowing light, sword shadow. The overwhelming sword beams whizzed and rushed toward the opposite liner, while the figures of the four people behind the sword beams stirred the surrounding void and turned it incomparably dark. As the water columns seemed to come to life and rush toward them, the sword beams crazily stirred and turned the sea area into a terrifying space of torrential rain. 10,000 meters away. A freighter was floating on the sea with two men and women in black tuxedos standing on the top of the freighter. The man was tall and handsome, while the woman was incomparably beautiful. They looked at the distant sea as if they could see through the void and see the battle scene tens of thousands of meters away. Dorrit, if my guess is correct, those four people should be the legendary cultivators of Huaxia, right? Because only they can burst out such a powerful combat power. The beautiful woman smiled and stroked her hair with her slender jade-like hands, exuding the charm of a mature woman. They're indeed cultivators of Huaxia. Dorrit snorted coldly. I once met a brat who was much stronger than them. But that brat was too insolent and was eventually killed by my master and his senior brother. If I had my current strength, my master wouldn't have passed away due to his heavy injuries. Your master was a very powerful ability user of our country. He also participated in the Crusades. The beautiful woman shook her head and said, even the current you is inferior to him in the past. Even he passed away due to serious injuries, let alone you. However, those country's ability users do have some ability. I know that Shui Duo. I've fought her before, and she was defeated by me. The six people behind her are all water attribute ability users. Their joint attack will cause their power to increase by more than 10 times. Tell me, who will be the winner of this showdown, or the country's ability users? No matter who is stronger or weaker, they won't be the final winner, said Dorrit apathetically. Country's people didn't get anything from the 3-star vestige, but the Chinese people got too many benefits. We can't do anything to them in Haiben Island, but here, we must get the things in the 3-star vestige. The beautiful woman let out a faint smile and said, you'll have to pay the price if you want me to act. I know what you want, snorted Dorrit coldly. I'll give you that water crystal. If you're still not satisfied, I'll personally find someone to help you craft a water staff after we go back. The beautiful woman's eyes lit up and she said without hesitation, deal. On the other side. For experts of the Everlasting Feast Hall unleashed their full strength. Even though Shui Duo and the other water attribute ability users had joined forces, the four symbols sword array still broke their formation. Even the country's liner was split by the violent sword array, leaving dozens of cracks on it. The entire liner was about to be destroyed. Attack! Seize their liner! The strong man shouted angrily and rushed toward the four experts of the Everlasting Feast Hall without hesitation. The other dozens of ability users also soared into the air and unleashed their own abilities to launch a fierce attack on the Tang family's people. People kept dying in the brutal battle. However, both sides tried their best to avoid causing harm to the liner as much as possible. It was because they were perfectly aware that no matter who would survive, they would need to take the liner to leave. On Huang Island hundreds of nautical miles away, Tan Xiu quietly sat cross-legged on a reef, continuously absorbing the star force from space. His star's tyrannical body had become more profound as he diligently cultivated. Now, he only needed the last 2 layers to reach the perfect state. Kacha, Kacha, a robot bee flashed its metal wings and landed in front of Tan Xiu. Its claws grabbed the stones on the ground and finally shot out a virtual hologram. Tan Xiu opened his eyes and saw the scene displayed on the hologram. His expression greatly changed. As his finger slid on the hologram, a series of strange symbols finally appeared. These symbols were the numbers of the Bull's Dearth galaxy. These numbers showed the exact distance from the virtual hologram. You too, come back. Tan Xiu's figure soared into the sky and shouted at Gu Xiaoxue and Qing Xuemei 2,000 meters away. After a while, 2 figures sprinted over. Qing Xuemei, who had removed the gravity suit, was now able to control part of her power. Although her speed was much slower than Gu Xiaoxue, she was already very satisfied. "Did you call us, Grand Master?" asked Gu Xiaoxue. Tan Xiu instantly rushed toward the deep-sea corvette on the shore, but his voice stayed behind. "Return to the deep-sea corvette immediately. Our people are under attack hundreds of nautical miles away. We must rescue them immediately." "Our people?" Gu Xiaoxue's expression shifted. Her figure flashed and instantly appeared next to Qing Xuemei. Her lily-white hands grabbed Qing Xuemei's collar and sprinted inside the deep-sea corvette with her. "Grand Master, who are the people we are going to rescue?" asked Gu Xiaoxue quickly after appearing next to Tan Xiu. Chapter 796. With a gloomy expression, Tan Xiu quickly typed on the virtual keyboard in front of the subaquatic corvette's control panel. As the subaquatic corvette sailed for a kilometer and sank to the bottom of the sea, it suddenly increased its power and bolted toward the several liners hundreds of nautical miles away. It only took a few minutes for the subaquatic corvette to arrive hundreds of nautical miles away. But in these few minutes, the fighting on the liners became more and more intense. The ability users of F country were faintly gaining the upper hand under the eruption of various abilities. Fuck off. The stalwart man's situation was different. Although his subordinates had killed or severely injured more than a dozen members of the Tang family's first and second guard squads, he was besieged by two experts of the Everlasting Feast Hall and was in danger of being seriously injured or killed at any time. Tang Guosheng and Tang Min were protected by the other two experts of the Everlasting Feast Hall and didn't suffer any injuries. Yet, they could only watch their family's most elite experts being killed or seriously injured, and their hearts sank. 10,000 meters away. On the top of the freighter where F country's ability users were riding, Dorit's hands were crossed behind his back. His eyes gleamed as he watched the Tang family's people gradually falling into a disadvantageous position. He slowly nodded and said, "F country's ability users are quite powerful. They used a lot of resources to train these ability users in the past, and it seems that the result is quite remarkable. China may have 4 experts, but 2 of them don't dare to act rashly since they have to protect others. If the battle goes on like this, it won't take long for most of China's experts to be killed, and the remaining ones will be seriously injured. However, F country's ability users won't have it easy either, and the final result will be a lose-lose situation for both sides." The woman giggled and said, "Kill them. Die. The fiercer they fight, the easier it will be for us to act. There's an old saying in China that when the sandpiper and the clam fight, the fisherman benefits. We should be the fisherman, right?" Dorit glanced at the woman and lightly said, "I didn't expect you to have such a deep understanding of China's culture recently. What's wrong? Do you want to organize an Eastern punitive expedition?" The woman rolled her eyes and angrily said, "I'm not tired of living. Why would I organize an Eastern punitive expedition? Furthermore, now is not the time for adepts to stand at the peak of humanity. Ordinary firearms are no threat to us, but what about more powerful weapons? Especially, the secret weapon of each country, the laser gun." Dorit's expression turned a lot more solemn as he nodded and said, "Countries are exploring and developing all kinds of relics, and the scientific and technological power they control is getting stronger and stronger. The laser guns with high firing speed, long range, and terrifying power have become the secret weapons of various countries. They are indeed able to threaten us." The beautiful woman didn't think as much as Dorit. She gazed into the distance and said, "Don't let your imagination run wild. Let's just wait for both sides to suffer. Maybe there are treasures in the 3-star vestige that are beneficial to us ability users. I don't mind sharing some with you if I really have them," said Dorit in a deep voice. "But if you don't, we can't change the terms we agreed on before." "Okay." In the vast sea, aside from the cruel slaughter on the ships and the constant appearance of various strange phenomena, the distant sea was much calmer. However, no one was aware that the subaquatic corvette had already appeared below the liner. Inside the cabin, Tan Xiu quickly entered a series of commands on the virtual keyboard. He then looked at Qing Xuemei and said, "You stay here. Xiao Xue and I will participate in the rescue operation. Remember, don't mess with the control equipment inside the subaquatic corvette. The optical computer has been bound to my fingerprint and retina. No one else can control it except me, else they will be attacked by the hidden weapons in the cockpit. How about I join the rescue operation?" Qing Xuemei nodded. Tan Xiu interrupted her and walked toward the cabin door while saying in a deep voice, "You still have a mission to complete, so you can't appear in front of others for the time being. Also, you can't even fully control your own power now. Not only will you not be of help to us, but you will also become a burden to us instead. Just stay here and behave yourself." Qing Xuemei was a bit embarrassed, but she still nodded silently. She knew that what Tan Xiu said was the truth. She was afraid that she wouldn't be able to help them with her current ability and might even become a burden to them. The subaquatic corvette's cabin door opened and a layer of energy shield popped out half a meter to block the great pressure of the seawater. As Tan Xiu and Gu Xiaoxue rushed out of the energy shield, the cabin door automatically closed. Under the pitch-black water, Tan Xiu and Gu Xiaoxue withstood the huge seawater pressure and quickly rushed to the surface. Kill the four of them. On the deck of the liner, 3 water ability users were controlling the surging water dungeon to trap the 4 members of the Tang family's second guardian squad inside. Even as the seawater solidified, ice arrows easily penetrated the water dungeon and shot toward the 4 people inside. Among the 4, a member of the second guardian squad clutched his bloody left arm. Blue veins bulged on his forehead and his eyes were full of killing intent, yet he had no way to rush out of the water dungeon. While the other 3 people dodged the ice arrows, they also had to take out their hands to help him block the ice arrows. "Don't worry about me. You guys find a way to kill your way out," the members shouted loudly. Puff, just as his voice fell, an ice arrow shot through the abdomen of a middle-aged man who was protecting him. As blood splashed, the middle-aged man flew several meters away and fell heavily. In an instant, the 4 people all felt a strong sense of powerlessness in their hearts. They knew very well that with their strength, it was almost impossible to break out of the water dungeon. But if they couldn't break out, they would have to face the enemy's continuous attacks, and they couldn't launch any counterattack. Whoosh! A lightning-fast figure rose from the sea near the edge of the liner. With a flash of a bright sword light, the 3F country water ability users were cut in half at the waist without them noticing. Tan Xiu's long sword danced around him. After killing the 3 ability users in an instant, he didn't stop at all. His lightning-fast figure once again appeared near the other 2 people. Die! Although the 2 ability users had discovered Tan Xiu ahead of time, they were only able to hastily set up defensive measures. Yet, they were still split into dozens of pieces in the face of the violent sword light. On the other side, the moment Gu Xiaoxue emerged from the sea, the water on her body instantly evaporated. As her white dress fluttered, layers of sword shadows resembled the Milky Way from the 9th heaven, engulfing the 2F country metahumans in an instant. As blood and flesh splattered all over the sky, she directly penetrated through the blood mist and landed a seemingly light punch on the back of one of the F country metahumans. "Everyone, be careful." Besieged by the 2 experts of the everlasting feast hall, the strong man was on the verge of collapse. The moment he saw the sudden appearance of 2 killing gods, his heart suddenly fell into an ice cave. At the cabin door of the liner, Tang Guosheng and Tang Min, who were protected by the other 2 experts of the everlasting feast hall, looked ecstatic when they saw the figure of the newcomer. In particular, Tang Guosheng found that the powerhouse who suddenly appeared turned out to be his grandson, Tan Xiu. The worry inside his heart instantly dissipated without a trace. "Kill these bastards, Xiu." Tang Xiu flashed a smile at Tang Guosheng as his figure constantly flickered. Every time he attacked, an ability user was either killed or severely injured. Tang Guosheng suddenly said, "You 2 don't need to protect us anymore. Join forces with Xiu and kill these F country ability users as soon as possible." The two experts of the everlasting feast hall glanced at each other and tacitly nodded. They then quickly rushed toward the nearest F country ability users. All of them were powerful individuals who had survived through a sea of blood and mountains of corpses. Their combat experience was extremely rich. That was why when they were fighting with the F nation's metahumans, they were still vigilantly paying attention to their surroundings. If any metahumans tried to attack Tang Guosheng and Tang Min, they would immediately withdraw from the battle and stop them. Originally, due to the sudden appearance of Tan Xiu and Gu Xiaoxue, the Tang family's members were in a disadvantageous position. But this time, it was the F country's ability users who were unable to fight back. Finally, the F country's stalwart man realized that it was impossible for him to win. Hence, he went all out to force the two everlasting feast hall's experts to retreat. Paying the price of 2 bloody wounds, he rushed toward the other side of the liner where the speedboat was hanging. Wanna leave? Dream on. The two men simultaneously bombarded the sword hilt with their palms. The two swords were as fast as meteors and pierced the stalwart man's back in the blink of an eye. Puff, the stalwart man was in despair. He could feel his heart getting pierced as his life force rapidly drained away. He regretted it. Because of his greed, he wanted to snatch the treasures obtained by the Chinese members in the 3-star vestige. Hence, he finally ended up dying tragically here. Run! A water elementalist's complexion paled. He could only watch helplessly as his leader was killed. He no longer had the slightest desire to fight. After shouting, he instantly fled to the distance and dashed into the water when the Tang family's experts couldn't pursue him. The remaining 20 metahumans from F country had looks of despair on their faces. Their ability was not to control water, so it was very difficult for them to survive in the vast sea. Puff, 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 since they had lost the will to continue fighting, except for nearly 10 ability users who jumped into the sea in an attempt to escape as fast as possible, the rest were all slaughtered in just half a minute. At this moment, the decks of the two liners were dyed red with blood and many corpses were scattered all over the place, looking very miserable. Tan Xiu quickly came to Tang Guosheng's front and asked, "Grandpa, why are you here?" Tang Guosheng was in a very good mood at the moment. Although the Tang family had lost a lot of elite experts, his grandson was safe and sound, making him feel a lot more relaxed. "Isn't it because of you?" Chapter 797. Tan Xiu finally learned the whole story through his explanation. He didn't blame Duan Mulin for misinforming him. After all, anyone who couldn't come out of the relic after it was closed would think that they were trapped or dead inside. On the contrary. Although he looked calm on the surface, he was actually very touched inwardly. His grandfather, Tang Guosheng, the head of the Tang family, actually rushed here with a large number of experts of the Tang family with great fanfare and almost lost his life in the vast sea. That warm current flowed through his limbs and bones, warming his 3 souls and 7 spirits, making him feel extremely comfortable. "You should believe in my ability, Grandpa. I dare not boast about other things, but the number of people on earth who can kill me can be counted on one hand." Tang Guosheng glared at him. Despite his smiling eyes, he still reprimanded him, "Being too conceited is easy to fail miserably. I know you're a powerful cultivator, but even a tiger needs to take a nap. Who doesn't have a chance? This old man came all the way here, yet you're blaming me?" Tan Xiu blushed with shame and smiled embarrassedly. "How could I dare to blame you? But Auntie just said that you left the entire Tang family behind and rushed here with your people. If something happens to you because of me, I won't be able to rest easy." Tang Guosheng nodded with satisfaction and said, "Don't worry. It's fine even if I didn't inform the rest of the family. Even if something happens to me, your first uncle can now shoulder the Tang family's pillar. With your second grandpa and third grandpa's assistance, it won't be a problem. Besides, I just heard a rumor recently that has a deep relationship with you." "What rumor?" asked Tan Xiu in surprise. "I heard that you have a very powerful disciple," said Tang Guosheng meaningfully. Even Duanmu Lin can't lift his head. Tan Xiu stared blankly and asked with a confused expression, I do have a very powerful disciple, but what happened between her and Duanmu Lin? I don't know. At the side, Gu Xiaoxue lightly coughed and smilingly said, Grand Master, and I met some people from China's Special Abilities Bureau on the way to the Strait of Malacca. Duanmu Lin is among them. Master used some of her abilities to intimidate those people. Tan Xiu was stunned, then quickly asked, Yener didn't mention my name, did she? Gu Xiaoxue said with a smile, Master naturally mentioned you. Otherwise, how can we figure out your specific situation? Tan Xiu felt helpless inside. He didn't want to expose his relationship with the everlasting feast hall, but Gu Yener's actions had exposed the relationship he had been trying to hide. At this time, even those big shots in the country would know about his relationship with the everlasting feast hall. Sighing inwardly, Tan Xiu asked, You said that Yener used some power? You managed to intimidate the people from China's Special Abilities Bureau? Gu Xiaoxue gently nodded and said, You know how strong Master is, Grand Master. That bit of ability is too powerful for her in the eyes of outsiders. Tan Xiu nodded in response. Since Gu Yener had shown her muscles and intimidated the people from China's Special Abilities Bureau, then they should know that he wasn't someone to be trifled with. It didn't matter even if they were vigilant against him and the Tang family in the future. In any case, he didn't want to seize the position of the country's ruler by force. If the power Yener has shown is really strong to the point that even Duanmu Lin feels powerless against her, I'm afraid that many big shots will be afraid of me. Thinking about it from another perspective, it's not necessarily a bad thing. I'll have to deal with some people if I want to develop myself in the future. It's enough if they don't dare to do anything to me, the magnificent Tang Corporation, the everlasting feast hall, and even the Tang family. As he thought up to there, a smile appeared on Tan Xiu's face. He looked at Tang Guosheng and asked, Grandpa, is this the rumor you heard? Tang Guosheng shook his head and smilingly said, It's more than that. As the leader of the Special Abilities Bureau, Duanmu Lin personally issued an order that no one should provoke him in the future. Neither the everlasting feast hall, the Tang family, nor the magnificent Tang Corporation. Now, the top family heads of the imperial capital have all received the news. Tan Xiu smiled strangely. It seemed that his precious disciple had scared Duanmu Lin quite a bit. For the dignified head of the Special Abilities Bureau to issue such an order, it meant that he could do whatever he wanted in the country in the future. Suddenly, Tang Min, who was sitting next to him, asked, Xiu, according to the news from Haiben Island, all the passageways leading to the 3-star vestige are closed, and you haven't come out yet. The 3-star relic was located in the depths of the Strait of Malacca. Without a submarine, no one would be able to withstand the pressure of the deep sea. But you came out. How did you do it? A smile outlined on the corner of Tang Xiu's mouth as he smilingly said, Auntie, since you're curious, then I'll take you to a place. Also, I have some good news to tell you. Where are we going? Asked Tang Min. Just follow me, said Tan Xiu with a smile. A few minutes later, Tan Xiu and Gu Xiaoxue took Tang Guosheng and Tang Min to the liner's deck. Tan Xiu grabbed Tang Guosheng and Tang Min's arms as a surging airflow instantly wrapped them and then jumped into the sea. They descended for more than 10 meters. The subaquatic corvette appeared in front of the quartet. As Tan Xiu inputted a series of commands outside the cabin door, the airflow pushed the seawater outside the cabin door half a meter away. Tan Xiu then quickly entered with Tang Guosheng and Tang Min. Heavens! This place is... Tang Min's eyes widened to the size of a copper bell, and her eyes flickered with shock. Tang Guosheng was a bit better than her, but he was also shocked. The facilities inside the subaquatic corvette, as well as the technology that far surpassed today's level, made their hearts beat faster. This is the subaquatic corvette I got from the 3-star base I established in the Star Luo Empire, said Tan Xiu with a smile. We were able to leave the 3-star vestige smoothly and deceive everyone's eyes because of it. Qing Xuemei, let me introduce you. This is my grandpa and this is my auntie. At this moment, Qing Xuemei came out of the cabin and was slightly surprised to see Tang Guosheng and Tang Min. She immediately looked shocked after hearing Tan Xiu's introduction. She had seen Tang Guosheng and Tang Min on TV countless times and knew that they were the Tang family's patriarch and his daughter. Grandpa Tang, Auntie Tang. Qing Xuemei suppressed the shock inside and greeted with a bit of respect. Tang Guosheng was surprised to see Qing Xuemei, but he didn't show it and just nodded with a smile. Tang Min, on the other hand, looked suspicious and asked, "You're Qing Xuemei? Why do you look so familiar?" "I once met you with my mother," said Qing Xuemei. "Who is your mother?" asked Tang Min, confused. Qing Xuemei didn't reply. She didn't want to recall her parents' matter, much less mention it in front of others. Even though she knew that her mother and Tang Min had been close friends since they were young, she knew that her mother had grown up with Tang Min. Tan Xiu knew something about Qing Xuemei. Sensing that she didn't want to mention her mother, he immediately said, "Auntie, I still have something important to tell you. This is also the main reason why I brought you here." "What is it?" asked Tang Min with a slight frown. "Before I tell you, you must promise me that you must not tell anyone except the core members of the Tang family," said Tan Xiu. Tang Guosheng realized that what Tan Xiu said should be very important, so he straightforwardly said, "With your words, we know what to say and what not to say." Tan Xiu nodded and said, "I've taken control of the entire 3-star vestige, so I'm now the owner of the 3-star vestige. I can enter it at any time if I want to. Naturally, I can also use everything inside." "What did you say?" Tang Guosheng was aghast and exclaimed with disbelief on his old face. Tan Xiu repeated what he just said and finally said, "I'm telling the truth. The 3-star vestige was left behind by the Star Luo Empire in the Black Cloud Star Field's Postok Galaxy. To be precise, it was the Star Luo Empire's fleets that fled and eventually fled to Earth. They hurriedly built a seabed base, but they eventually perished due to the sudden change in Earth's environment and climate." "What sudden change in climate and environment?" asked Tang Guosheng hurriedly. "Tectonic movements, volcanic eruptions, and the extinction of all living things," answered Tan Xiu. Tang Guosheng fell into silence. Earth had experienced countless natural disasters, and this was the knowledge that scientists had tried their best to explore. It was just that he didn't expect that the extraterrestrial races would suffer such a devastating blow. "What exactly is inside the 3-star vestige, Xiu? What's in it for us?" Tang Min asked the question she wanted to know the most. "Our Tang family can rely on that 3-star vestige to dominate the world if we want to do so," said Tan Xiu. "It has technology and weapons that far surpass Earth's. Shortly put, all the necessities for a race to survive are all there." Tang Guosheng was shaken and didn't speak for a long time. Tang Min frowned deeply and stared at Tan Xiu's face, asking, "Do you want to dominate Earth, Xiu?" "I'm not interested." Tan Xiu shook his head. "If I want to dominate Earth, I can do it as long as I have some time even without that 3-star vestige. In my opinion, cultivation is the most important thing now." "Then, how do you plan to solve the problem of the 3-star vestige?" asked Tang Min. Tan Xiu looked at Tang Guosheng and seriously said, "I think we shouldn't announce the 3-star vestige to the public for the time being. However, I brought out a lot of good things from it. If the country is willing to exchange some things, we can exchange some of the simplest technologies." Chapter 798. Tang Guosheng very much approved of Tan Xiu's suggestion. Although his grandson, Tan Xiu, now controlled the entire 3-star vestige, everyone knew that a man who is not content is like a snake trying to swallow an elephant. Even for the higher-ups of China, who could guarantee that they could obtain powerful scientific and technological power and arm a powerful army to break the current world structure and become the world's overlord? "What do you need the most now, Xiu?" Tang Guosheng knew that his grandson was a cultivator, so he began to calculate the benefits for his grandson in his heart. Tan Xiu pondered for a moment and slowly said, "I need time." Tang Guosheng stared blankly and asked in confusion, "How long?" At least 10 years or more, said Tan Xiu. The cultivation resources on Earth are really limited nowadays, and my cultivation speed is too slow. Grandpa, as long as I have enough time, no matter how the world's structure changes in the future, it won't be a threat to me or even our Tang family. Tang Guisheng nodded silently. He felt that the 10 years that his grandson said was too little. If he wanted to cultivate to the level of a true expert, time was far from enough. For example, the Amur tiger in the northeast. He was 200 years old, but how much cultivation did he have? Then let's think about it and see what we can offer. We can make our country stronger and stronger, but we can't make it too strong in a short time. All right. Afterward, the grandfather and grandson began to discuss. Tan Xiu took out a lot of things from his interspatial ring. After their research, they finally determined a few things. Apart from the subaquatic corvette they were currently riding, there was only a producer for daily necessities and a few energy crystals. The subaquatic corvette we're riding now has more than a dozen weapon configurations inside, and the most powerful one is the subaquatic laser cannon. It can even blast a small island. Hence, I'm going to dismantle the main cannon and leave some other less powerful weapon systems. I believe that once the higher-ups of China get their hands on this subaquatic corvette, they won't be able to achieve much in 3 to 5 years. After 8 or 10 years, even if their research is thorough and they can use the scientific and technological results to manufacture a large number of subaquatic corvettes, we don't have to worry about it anymore. At the end of the discussion, Tan Xiu said slowly. Tang Guisheng nodded with satisfaction and smilingly said, "If you ask me, I'm afraid the higher-ups of China will be grinning from ear to ear even if most of the weapons on this subaquatic corvette are dismantled and handed over to them. Why can't our country become the world's hegemon? No way to become number one in military affairs? Isn't it because their weapons are too weak?" Tan Xiu said with a smile, "Since we are Chinese, we must make our country's weapons more powerful and make our country's armed forces the most powerful. I hope the higher-ups of our country don't have any ambitious people." Although he said so, he was sure that once Huaxia's military power reached the top in the world, even surpassing America by a large margin, the country's bigwigs would definitely implement some plans. At the very least, it would cause some changes to the current world structure. Huaxia was like a sleeping lion that got stronger and stronger after awakening and could now reach the world's first-class standard. However, a lion was a lion. Even though the lion had been staying in its territory peacefully for the past few decades, when it possessed the greatest strength, it would definitely want to step into the vast territory of the forest. Tan Xiu wanted his country to become stronger and stronger, but he needed more time to make his strength and influence stronger. Otherwise, this planet would be destroyed before he could ascend to the heavens in the future. Knock, knock, the door was knocked. Qing Xuemei, who didn't participate in the discussion, pushed the door and entered. She looked at Tan Xiu and quickly said, "The virtual image of the detector just showed that some people are approaching us. If my guess is correct, they should be people from America." Tan Xiu and Tang Guisheng exchanged glances and looked surprised. Tang Min, on the other hand, was puzzled and asked, "Someone from Team M? They're approaching us. Are they the same as those ability users from France? They also want to snatch the treasures obtained from the 3-star vestige from us?" Tang Guisheng nodded thoughtfully and said, "That should be the case. America has always regarded themselves as the world's top dog, yet all the powerhouses sent by their country were annihilated in the 3-star vestige. It's impossible for them to get more benefits from the 3-star vestige. My guess is that they set their sights on the people from various countries who obtained the treasures in the vestige." "Let's go to the steering cabin and have a look," said Tan Xiu. Shortly after, all 5 of them went to the steering cabin and watched the scene displayed on the virtual screen. A cold light flashed in Tan Xiu's eyes. It was because there were dozens of experts on the cargo ship sent by America. They were obviously not ordinary people, and it was obvious that they were up to no good when they looked at the 2 liners above. These people from America are really arrogant just because they are strong and have advanced weapons," said Tang Guisheng coldly. "Do you see the man on the top of the cargo ship? His name is Dorrit, the leader of the Golden Shield Special Ability Bureau of America. His position is the same as Duan Mulin of Huaxia, but his authority is higher. How did you know that, Dad? Asked Tang Min, confused. I used to work in the Confidential Archives Department, so I naturally know some special intelligence files, said Tang Guosheng. There are records about this Dorrit in there. Only, there aren't many records about him. Why didn't you recognize the identity of the F country's ability users we met before? Asked Tang Min curiously. F country's ability users are very low-key. Tang Guosheng shook his head and said, I only know that they have established a special ability bureau, but I don't know who's in charge, how many ability users they have, and how powerful they are. Further, F country's aggressiveness is not as strong as the M country, so we mostly pay attention to the M country's intelligence. Tang Min suddenly understood and looked at Tan Xiu, asking, how are we going to deal with them, Xiu? Tan Xiu was silent for a moment and slowly said, if Grandpa hates them, we can wipe them out without any casualties. Tang Guosheng stared blankly and asked with a puzzled expression, casualties are unavoidable if we fight them, no? Those M country people are not paper tigers. Don't you think your tone is too big, Xiu? A smile outlined on the corner of Tan Xiu's mouth. His hands quickly tapped on the virtual keyboard and a series of commands were set by him. At the same time, all the muzzles on the 20-meter-long subaquatic corvette began to adjust their positions, while the weapon propulsion furnace operated at full speed. 6 kilometers away. The cargo ship on the vast sea was slowly approaching the two liners that had stopped sailing. Dorrit, who was on the top of the cargo ship, looked hesitant and his fingers kept stroking his chin. As for the beautiful woman standing beside him, the smile on her face had already disappeared without a trace and was replaced by a solemn expression. You must think about it clearly, Dorrit. On the two Chinese liners, there were originally 4 very strong experts. Later on, 2 even stronger experts came. With the strength of the 6 of them, they can completely suppress us. We'll be the ones to be annihilated if we fight, said the beautiful woman with a cold voice. Dorrit turned to look at the beautiful woman. He took a deep breath and said, I know the enemy is very strong. I can't even deal with the original 4 experts. The 2 people who appeared later are probably stronger than me. But don't forget what kind of weapons we've equipped on this modified cargo ship. I've made up my mind to attack them as soon as we approach them. The beautiful woman was silent for a few seconds and finally nodded slowly. She naturally knew what kind of weapons were equipped on this modified cargo ship. Can the torpedoes blow up those 2 liners? Can the jellyfish torpedoes kill or severely injure those powerful guys? She was still a bit worried. There's an old saying in China that I like very much. Do you know what it says? Dorrit shook his head. What does it say? Asked the beautiful woman, confused. Nothing ventured, nothing gained, said Dorrit in a deep voice. We won't get anything if we give up the plan just because we're afraid of the other party's military force. But if those Huaxia experts return to their country with the things they got from the 3-star vestige, I believe it won't take a few years for China's military force to surpass ours. By that time, they will have the biggest say. The beautiful woman opened her mouth. Just as she was about to agree with Dorrit's words, a lingering fear exploded in her heart. In fact, at this moment, all the pores on her body stood on end. Run away. Although the beautiful woman didn't know where the danger came from, she still dashed to the side of the sea in an instant. At the same time, she grabbed an iron chain on the cargo ship and forcefully twisted it, pulling a kayak away. Boom! The huge explosion created a monstrous wave. The entire cargo ship was blown up in an instant. Only a few dozen ability users of the M country's Golden Shield Special Abilities Bureau realized that the situation was not right and fled far away, while the rest were either severely injured or killed in the explosion. Inside the subaquatic corvette, Tang Guosheng and Tang Min were shocked by the attack. They learned from Tan Xiu that this was not the result of the subaquatic corvette's main cannon. If it was the main cannon, wouldn't it be able to annihilate all the enemies? The show has just begun, said Tan Xiu with a smile. I've activated the smart targeting system. None of those ability users from Country M will be able to escape. Standing behind Tan Xiu, Qing Xuemei hurriedly said, aren't we going to leave some of them alive to interrogate them about the M country's Golden Shield Special Abilities Bureau? Chapter 799. As far as Tan Xiu was concerned, it didn't make any sense to keep them alive. It didn't matter if he couldn't figure out the situation of Country M's Golden Shield Special Abilities Bureau. He was not a politician, but a cultivator who simply wanted to make some money to buy cultivation resources and then accompany his family to seriously cultivate. Tang Guishan completely respected Tan Xiu's opinion at this moment. When he found that the latter shook his head, he directly said, Xiu has his own plans. Since he doesn't want to keep them alive, then kill them all. I believe that Country M will be well behaved for a few years after these Golden Shield Special Abilities Bureau ability users suffer losses. As he said that, everyone's eyes were still glued to the virtual screen, watching the dozen or so Golden Shield Special Abilities Bureau ability users from Country M unleash their special abilities one after another and quickly fled from the place where the cargo ship exploded. The beautiful woman was still fine. She was a water elemental special ability user and also managed to grab a kayak in a hurry. She controlled it to escape a kilometer away and didn't suffer any serious injuries. However, Dorrit didn't have a sixth sense like the beautiful woman, so his reaction was a lot slower. At this moment, his back was badly mutilated and blood stained the corner of his mouth. He desperately controlled the two flames and quickly ran away on the surface of the sea. Boom, 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 6 roars came from behind them. Dorrit and the beautiful woman looked back as they ran, and their complexions drastically changed. They saw 6 members of the Special Abilities Bureau being bombarded by shells out of the water and their bodies exploding into a mist of blood more than 10 meters high in the air. What the hell was that? Dorrit's eyes widened and his chest was filled with flames of anger as he roared while fleeing. Unfortunately, no one answered him. Even the beautiful woman with the lightest injury couldn't explain. Sang Ro was a water elemental of the Golden Shield Special Abilities Bureau. She was 48 years old and definitely ranked among the top 5 in the entire Golden Shield Special Abilities Bureau. She was also Dorrit's right-hand man. At this moment, although she was injured in the explosion of the cargo ship, it didn't affect her ability much. After entering the sea, she was like a fish in water, manipulating the water around her and constantly accelerating her swimming speed. At this time, even a supercar running at full speed couldn't match her speed in the water. The sea is my world. I can survive even if I stay in the sea for a few months. No matter what kind of weapon the other party uses, as long as I'm in the water, it won't pose any threat to me, Hayamoto Sang Ro imagined. Suddenly, a terrifying aura spread out, and even the buzzing sound traveled extremely fast in the water. In less than 2 seconds after she caught sight of it, a huge impact hit her back. As her body exploded, the seawater was dyed red. On the sea, the gorgeous woman operated the kayak and quickly appeared beside Dorrit. Looking at his miserable appearance as he coughed up blood, she shouted in a deep voice, "Come on, I'm faster than you on the sea. I'll take you to escape." The flames of anger in Dorrit's chest subsided a lot. After he sprinted to the kayak, the flames he manipulated dissipated. Seeing that the beautiful woman's injuries were not serious, he turned his head and looked behind him. Boom! Boom! He clearly saw the 2 remaining ability users of the Golden Shield Special Abilities Bureau on the sea surface hit by the shells that shot out of the sea. Although the shells did not blow them up into ashes, their bodies were blasted open and they were killed. Bastard! Even if it's a torpedo or a jellyfish mine, it's impossible for it to have such power, speed, and accuracy. What kind of weapon is that? Who's the one who launched the attack on us? Dorrit was almost driven crazy by the sudden appearance of the shells. His heart was bleeding as he watched the men he had trained get blown up one after another. I think it should be the work of Huaxia's people, said the gorgeous woman coldly. There's no one else in this sea area except for Huaxia's liner. We should be ambushed by Huaxia, Dorrit. I'm guessing there's even a Chinese submarine at the bottom of the sea. Huaxia. I also guessed that it's their people, roared Dorrit. But these bastards almost died in the hands of F Country's Special Abilities Bureau's ability users. How dare they attack us? Also, we're so far away from them. How did they find us? Our eyes have undergone surgery to greatly improve our eyesight, sneered the gorgeous woman. Don't tell me that no one from Huaxia has undergone surgery. Most importantly, if those two liners aren't just ordinary liners but ones equipped with military reconnaissance systems, it's easy for them to find us through the instruments. Anyways, it's useless no matter how angry we are. The most important thing now is to run away, far away from this sea area. Dorrit took a deep breath to suppress his anger and coldly said with a gloomy face, I'll definitely make those Huaxia bastards pay a painful price as long as I don't die today. I'll massacre them, at least a small city of theirs. Only then can the hatred in my heart be appeased. You're right. Only by slaughtering those Huaxia people and using their blood can we wash away today's humiliation. Suddenly, the gorgeous woman's body trembled. Almost in an instant, two water columns appeared on both sides of the kayak and instantly wrapped around her body, forcibly moving her several meters away. Boom! A cannonball bombarded the kayak and instantly hit Dorrit, who was unaware of it, causing him to lose consciousness amidst the flames of the explosion. His body was still intact, but his internal organs were shattered by the power of the explosion. Unless he had an immortal pill concocted by a perfected golden immortal, only death awaited him. Dorrit. The gorgeous woman looked deeply sorrowful. She didn't have much affection for the people of the Golden Shield Special Abilities Bureau, but it was different for Dorrit. Although she was only a nominal member of the Golden Shield Special Abilities Bureau, it was all because of Dorrit. Although they didn't have any romantic feelings, they had done many things together and had a very good comrade-in-arms. But at this time, Dorrit, one of the few friends she trusted very much, was killed just like that, causing her to be thoroughly furious. Damned Huaxia people. I'll make you pay with your blood sooner or later. The gorgeous woman angrily roared and let the water dragons roll her as she continued to flee into the distance. Her speed of fleeing was even faster than before. Whoosh! Whoosh! 2 half-meter-long cannonballs completely locked on the gorgeous woman in midair. A few seconds after she cursed, the 2 cannonballs bombarded her body. Inside the subaquatic corvette, Tan Xiu quietly watched the gorgeous woman being killed by the 2 cannonballs. The coldness in his eyes gradually subsided. He turned to look at Tang Guisheng and said, I still need to stay at sea for 2 more days, Grandpa. I'm sure you've alarmed a lot of people since you brought our Tang family's people here in a hurry. Besides, we've killed the ability users of F country and M country, and the news of their deaths will soon be known by the people of these 2 countries. Therefore, you must take our Tang family's people to leave this sea area as fast as possible and return to our country. Do we need to disclose the fact that we've killed the ability users of these 2 countries? Asked Tang Guisheng. For instance, those people above. No need to tell them directly. Tan Xiu shook his head and said, Duanmu Lin is actually their spokesperson. Just tell him directly. I'm sure he'll not only solve our future troubles and erase all the traces, but he'll also be very excited about it. This is also our gift to him. Tang Guisheng's eyes lit up. He immediately nodded with satisfaction and said, You're right. Let's do it. Xiu, you must pay attention to your safety after we leave. You must survive no matter what. Don't worry. Tan Xiu nodded. I won't fail miserably. Half a day later. Tan Xiu escorted Tang Guisheng and Tang Min back to the liner and watched the 2 liners disappear into the distance. Then, he turned to look at Gu Xiaoxue at the side and said, I used to feel a bit of kinship, but only your master could give me that feeling. But now, I have more relatives, and this feeling is really good. An envious look flashed in Gu Xiaoxue's eyes. She was an orphan and didn't know who her parents were, whether they were dead or alive. However, she didn't care about it. What she cared about was her master, Gu Yan. In her opinion, her relatives were her master and the core members of the everlasting feast hall. Relatives, feeling? Gu Xiaoshua's expression suddenly moved and she asked, Grand Master, do you only regard my master as a relative? A master for a day is a father for a lifetime. Tan Xiu said with a smile. If not relatives, then what are they? Gu Xiaoshua's heart suddenly ached. A complex emotion was crazily growing inside her. She didn't know if it was because of her master or some other reason. In the next 2 days, Tan Xiu took Gu Xiaoshua and Qing Xuemei back to the deserted island to continue training Qing Xuemei. After the daily training, Qing Xuemei gradually controlled her own power and even learned an immortal cultivation technique from Tan Xiu. The taste of cultivation made her feel intoxicated, and she even found herself addicted to it. Unfortunately, Tan Xiu didn't have much time to delay her. She was a bit reluctant when he told her that the training was over. What should we do next? Asked Qing Xuemei with a bit of worry on her face. I know what you're worried about, said Tan Xiu. After all, you still have a mission to carry out. Those people in Japan probably think that you died in the vestige. You'll definitely be questioned if you go back rashly. But don't worry. I've already thought of a foolproof plan for you. I can still return to Japan, asked Qing Xuemei in surprise. Continue the mission. Of course. I've arranged Kawako Yamamoto to cover for you and even help you in the future, said Tan Xiu with a smile. Naturally, I won't let you get kicked out of the mission. Chapter 800. Tan Xiu explained and then directly sent Kawako to Japan with the subaquatic corvette. Kawako sent someone to pick them up and they finally returned smoothly. Tang Xiu gave her a technological product and told her to deal with the Japanese people. Of course, the technological product was very crappy and belonged to the auxiliary life category. Before parting, Tan Xiu only said one sentence to Qing Xuemei, but he believed that Qing Xuemei would understand. The sentence was, from now on, you, Qing Xuemei, will be my, Tan Xiu's, person when you're alive, and my, Tan Xiu's, ghost when you die. Only I can make you go further on the road you'll have to walk for thousands of years to come. Early in the morning. The first ray of sunlight rose from the east as the subaquatic corvette docked near Jingmen Island's port. Due to the previous discussion with Tang Guisheng, all the people and ships near the small port had been cleared away and taken over by the everlasting feast hall's people. On the shore of the port, Duanmu Lin and Tang Guisheng stood side by side while several people from the State Ability Users Bureau waited with anticipation on their faces. Old Tang, are you sure? Tan Xiu said today. Duanmu Lin was also full of anticipation. He couldn't sleep at night ever since he learned from Tang Guisheng that Tan Xiu obtained a subaquatic corvette in the 3-star vestige. He also learned that Tan Xiu used the subaquatic corvette to kill dozens of ability users from the M country's State Ability Users Bureau, including the number 1 figure of the agency, Dorit. Hence, he was eager to see the subaquatic corvette. Tang Guisheng smiled and said, when have I ever lied? Tang Guisheng smiled and said, that's what Xiu told me to tell you. Don't wait here if you don't believe me. Duanmu Lin quickly smiled apologetically and said, please don't. I may not believe anyone, but I believe you, old Tang. Let alone one day, even if I have to wait for a year and a half, I won't even take a single step away. Don't worry. Tang Guisheng smiled with satisfaction. Xiu had always been a man of his word, a man of his word. Who knows, he might appear in front of us in a while. His voice came to an abrupt halt at this moment. Tang Guisheng looked at the subaquatic corvette floating in the sea ahead with an excited look on his old face. He raised his arm and pointed at it, saying, that's the subaquatic corvette. Xiu and the others are back. Duanmu Lin looked around and saw the hatch of the subaquatic corvette open and Tan Xiu and Gu Xiaoxue coming out. He immediately took a few steps forward and shouted to Tan Xiu, "Welcome back, little Tang." Tan Xiu and Gu Xiaoxua trod on the water's surface and went straight to the front of Duanmu Lin and Tang Guosheng. Tan Xiu then said with a smile, "Senior Duanmu, I feel that it's really good to come back alive. I didn't disappoint you. This time, I should be considered to have performed a meritorious deed. I brought back a big fellow. It's a pity that I didn't manage to bring the other items out. Otherwise, it would definitely bring great benefits to our Huaxia country." Duanmu Lin affectionately held Tan Xiu's hand, shook it hard and said, "It's enough, it's enough. I've learned the specifics of the subaquatic corvette from your grandfather. It's really beyond my wildest dreams. Just by relying on this subaquatic corvette, they were able to kill dozens of ability users from the Special Abilities Bureau of the M country. The most important thing is that even Dorrit was killed. This subaquatic corvette is definitely a terrifying killing weapon under the sea." "I don't know if it's a terrifying killing weapon or not," Tan Xiu said with a smile. "I only know that its weapon configuration is really good and its speed is fast enough. That's right, the environment inside is also very good. The alien race that left the vestige behind really knows how to enjoy life. Can you take me to visit it?" asked Duanmu Lin with a smile. "Senior Duanmu, I got this subaquatic corvette from the 3-star vestige, but it's not my personal property." Tan Xiu waved his hand and said, "You represent the government, and I need to give this subaquatic corvette to the government, so you can take it. Tan Xiu, you're a righteous person and a role model for the younger generation," said Duanmu Lin with a satisfied expression. "I'll accept this subaquatic corvette on behalf of the country, and I'm sure the reward from the country will be handed over to you soon." A smile outlined on the corner of Tan Xiu's mouth as he smilingly said, "This port is good. The Special Abilities Bureau's people will immediately withdraw and hand it over to your Everlasting Feast Hall's people," said Duanmu Lin without hesitation. "Also, the government's approval will be sent to you soon. This will be the Everlasting Feast Hall's private port in the future." "Thank you, Senior Duanmu," said Tan Xiu with a smile. "I'll tell Kang Xia to take 100 boxes of God's Nectar and send them to your Special Abilities Bureau's HQ later. This is also a token of my appreciation." "Good, good, good." The wrinkles on Duanmu Lin's face stretched out, and his smile was absolutely sincere. Tan Xiu looked at Tang Guosheng and asked, "Grandpa, what's your next plan? Are you going to the Everlasting Feast Hall with me? Or are you going to leave Jingmen Island with Senior Duanmu?" Tang Guosheng's keen eyes noticed a trace of strange expression on Duanmu Lin's face. He immediately said, "I won't blindly meddle in the affairs of you youngsters. I'll go with Brother Duanmu when he returns to the imperial capital." Tang Min, who was behind him, suddenly said with a smile, "I've been tossing and turning too much these days, so I'll stay in Jingmen Island and have a good rest. Xiu, you won't refuse to entertain me if Auntie stays, will you?" "Since Auntie is willing to stay, I'll naturally entertain you with the highest level," said Tan Xiu with a smile. "Senior Duanmu, we'll take our leave first. Please don't hesitate to ask if you need my help in the future." A disappointed look flashed in Duanmu Lin's eyes, but he still nodded with a smile. He thought that Tang Guosheng would choose to leave with Tan Xiu, and he would then have an excuse to go to the Everlasting Feast Hall with him. He couldn't figure out the actual situation of the Everlasting Feast Hall when he went there by himself, but he might have an unexpected discovery if he went with Tang Guosheng. What a pity, Duanmu Lin felt somewhat helpless inside. Shortly after, 4 cars left the port. Tan Xiu and Tang Min arrived at the Everlasting Feast Hall and immediately received the best hospitality. Even Gu Yan got the news and came out of the exquisite pagoda to greet him. Tang Min was very curious about Gu Yan, so she held her hand and chatted with her for a long time. She even learned a lot of things from Gu Yan, and was greatly shocked. In the evening, just as Tan Xiu and Tang Min were having dinner together, Gu Xiaoxue came to the private room. She looked at Tan Xiu and said, "Grand Master, Ban's Ho learned that you're in the Everlasting Feast Hall and he wants to see you." Ban's Ho is also in the Everlasting Feast Hall. Tan Xiu was surprised. Ban's Ho sent 10 orphans from the northwest yesterday. Except for 2 children with bad temperament, the other 8 children have good aptitude and temperament. He originally planned to do it tonight, but he wants to see you after learning that you're here. He said that he wants to report his work to you. How many children have been adopted by our Everlasting Feast Hall? Asked Tan Xiu. Including the 8 children, a total of 62,200, answered Gu Xiaoxue. How did it suddenly increase by so much? Tan Xiu was shocked. There's a drought in the northwest, and the poorer places are even more difficult to live. Gu Xiaoxue forced a smile. Therefore, there's a phenomenon of people selling their children in private. The government has been trying to solve the problem there, but there are too many people who need help, which makes the lives of many homeless children more difficult. Even the children from more than a dozen orphanages have been taken out by Banshou's team through special means. Do we still need to take out the children from the orphanages? Tan Xiu was confused. Those orphanages are about to close soon. If we don't accept those children, I'm afraid those children will become homeless sooner or later, said Gu Xiaoxue. As a matter of fact, those orphanages are private orphanages donated by the society, and they are adopted by some warm-hearted people. Have all the traces been cleaned up? Tan Xiu suddenly understood and nodded. When Banshou's team reported to me, I realized that such a large number of orphans would be noticed by some people with ulterior motives, said Gu Xiaoxue. So, I sent a group of elites of our Everlasting Feast Hall to wipe all the traces. Even if someone wants to investigate, they will lose the direction. Tan Xiu took a deep breath and looked at Gu Xiaoxue, saying, "Bring Ban's Ho here." All right. As Gu Xiaoxue left the room, Tang Min asked in surprise, "Xiu, why did you adopt so many homeless children?" "To nurture, train, and form an army of cultivators," answered Tan Xiu. "Why did you form an army of cultivators?" asked Tang Min in amazement. "Don't tell me you really want to dominate the world." Tan Xiu shook his head and smilingly said, "Auntie, do you think your nephew only has such a goal? Dominate the world? Hee, wait until my strength improves to a certain level in the future, I can make the entire earth explode with just a sneeze. Haven't you already learned about the existence of the immortal world from Yen, her? These children I've trained will be good helpers to follow me to roam the immortal world in the future." Tang Min fell into silence for a few minutes before she asked with a bit of expectation, "Do you think Auntie has any hope of going to the immortal world, Xiu?" "It's naturally not a problem in the future if you're interested," said Tan Xiu with a smile. "If worst comes to worst, I'll deceive the heavenly Tao laws in this world and the entire Tang family can follow me to the immortal world." "That's great." Tang Min clapped her hands and exclaimed excitedly. "Auntie, it's best not to tell Grandpa about what you know," said Tan Xiu with a smile. "After all, this is no trivial matter. Once it's leaked, I'm afraid it will bring unnecessary troubles to our family. I'll make arrangements for the Tang family in the future." All right. I'll keep it in mind." Tang Min quickly replied. Quickly. Ban's Ho came to the room in a hurry and looked at Tan Xiu as he excitedly called out, "I finally get to see you, boss. I went to Shanghai a few days ago, but I learned that you weren't in Shanghai." Tan Xiu smiled and waved his hand. After Ban's Ho sat down next to him, he smilingly said, "You've been working hard these days. I'll give you a target. You'll stop when the number of adopted children reaches 80,000. I'll have other arrangements for you and Dingzi at that time." You're tuning in to the Blissful Bookshelf YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.